I hate soccer.
Holy cow.
I'd give you a tour, but it's kind of a wreck right now. So.
What? Okay, your story. So you just travel the country and
Oh yeah,
go
yeah.
to all these games.
Yes. So I picked the van is Japanese. I picked it up in Tacoma, Washington about this time last year. I have a good buddy who is the husband of my best friend who imports Japanese vehicles into the DC area.
Right.
And I'd seen them import a handful of vehicles and thought, oh, these are super cute. Cuter and more unique than what I had been driving at the time. And I was already having like an existential crisis with all the other things going on in life. And I grew up camping, so I thought I could very easily make this a thing.
Right.
Take my time with it. Not the content side so much as just getting away from the life that I had created for myself in DC that I was not enjoying.
Right.
So I saw him and his wife import a couple of high aces, and they would take them to the beach for the weekend, kind of feel them out, and then not fix them up, but sell them to somebody who wanted to use it.
Do they even make those anymore?
They make high aces, definitely, but they don't make them. They've never made them for American consumption.
Gotcha.
So if you want one, you do have to import it. So.
Okay, what did you do before this?
Oh.
What was your corporate job?
I was a federal lobbyist for big oil.
Really?
Yes, it was the most soul-sucking experience of my entire life. And I felt like I had held out for so long I liken it to a toxic boyfriend. I was trying to fix them, fix the party I was in, fix the industry, fix the teams I was working on and the coworkers I had. And I opened my eyes one day. I was like, that's not me.
Right.
I can't hang out with any of these people any longer.
Right.
So I had been escaping on the weekends to go to MLS games because I was a DC United season ticket holder, and I had been paying close enough attention. I saw all of these other fandoms and supporter culture and experiences, newer, cooler stadiums, newer, cooler teams. And so I was going out to see those on the weekend, and I thought, wait, I could just do this and take it slow in a van. But I didn't want to go all in because my parents have a Sprinter, and that thing is insane. Yeah. Insanely expensive, very conspicuous. It would be a huge financial undertaking, and I thought, let me just start small, go small, try to be as bare bones as possible. And it's out in the parking lot. It's 5 feet wide by 10 feet long of living space, and then you have the 2 seats in the front. So.
What year did you leave DC?
Oh yes, so
doing this.
Right. So my friend was importing into the DC area, and when I had made this decision, this was end of 2023, that I had put my money down for it at auction with his help, and by the time it got on a shipping container, and was headed to Baltimore, because I was planning to just drive it down from there to my parents' house in Georgia. Take my time with the rebuild, whatever. Yeah. So I'd quit my job, moved back in with my parents, was patiently waiting. That bridge in Baltimore collapsed. So I was like, well, I am getting a little antsy. I'll go pick it up wherever it touches down in the U.S. first, which was the state of Washington. So last year from April to November, I took my time getting it back to the East Coast, and then I picked back up in February when MLS started again, but every other league is kind of picking up around that time too.
How many games have you been?
Last year I did 38. Oh my God. This year I'm set to outpace that at least double.
And you were just going around the country.
Yeah.
And just going, how in detail is your schedule? Do you have your entire year already planned out?
Heavens no. In fact, last week when I announced that I was going to be here, I had actually had a whole plan concocted to spend way more time in Toronto and then kind of make my way over to Montreal and down and hang out in the New England area. But most of this, the bare bones of it all, is dictated by the fact that I need to cross off the last 4 MLS stadiums on my list.
And then you've been to all of them.
Yes, but not on this journey. I started this journey with, I think, 8 left of the 30.
Okay.
San Diego popping up out of nowhere didn't help because now I got to trek back. But Montreal, Toronto, and New England were 3 that were left on that list, which is kind of wild because I was living in DC going to all these other away games, and I just never went farther than, well, I also haven't made it to NYCFC's Yankee Stadium. So that's also, those are the last few I have left for MLS. But as I've crafted the journey, it's then picking that one game. So example for this week, Montreal's hosting LAFC. And I then just look at the journey. And if there's some game in that lineup or on the road there that is kind of lines up with what I'm doing, I'll make it happen.
What's the best stadium? What's the best environment that you've been to so far? In the MLS.
Best environment in MLS. Oh, heavens. That's tough. It's really hard to beat LAFC.
Okay.
And I would say Atlanta is up there too. And I say that when you think of showing up in a parking lot to the very, very end, I think Atlanta has it figured out. They have a fantastic supporter tailgate that involves the kids, has something for everyone, is super welcoming. There's some places that are like, we pride ourselves on being exclusive because it elevates us as supporters from fans. And I don't say that as in it's a conscious and active choice always, but they're, because of that relationship that you then have with the general public and with the team, like you want to be your own independent entity. For a stranger to show up, especially in a majority male space, I don't really think anyone's like, new person, let's think about how to integrate her into everything going on. I have to do the legwork of reaching out to certain supporter sections and saying like, hey, I'm going to be there. Yeah, I can understand it, but
I mean, all right. So I started out my soccer journey in Michigan. So Detroit City FC in the USL. Have you been there?
I want to so badly.
That's a good spot.
I should clarify, every little journey I'm making, it's all circling around each other. So I could come back to Buffalo. I could come back to upstate New York. And I think I had an Indiana trip to Indy Fever on my list and then ended up scrapping it for something else. You would have thought I'd killed somebody with some of my pals who were like, you were supposed to come. And I thought, you guys are always, unless there's something I don't know, you're always going to be there. I'll get there eventually.
So everybody just contacts you through social media, kind of like how we connected? Or
well,
is it YouTube,
I would say
Instagram? Where are you biggest?
So unfortunately, I started biggest on Twitter. RIP to that website. I don't use it nearly as much anymore. I'm pivoting toward Instagram and TikTok for the short form, and then I really do want to do long form YouTube. Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to do. But my Instagram has blown up over the last. So I've started this podcast. I kind of did it back in probably 2021, just hit or miss. Now I'm actually consistent. With posting a long form interview every Monday, and then I do little clips. On my Instagram, I've gained something like 9,000 followers since February
of this year.
Yeah,
holy mackerel!
And it's just, but I saw a post of yours saying like, "What is this algorithm? This algorithm just does not make sense because
it doesn't.
One post will go bonkers, and the other one gets 30 likes, and you're like, wait, why did this one get 500 and this one get 30? And then the one, it was your FC Cincinnati thing, because you posted at FC, and then you had more.
Oh, it's climbing. It's like at 115,000 views right now.
It's crazy.
I'll tell you another crazy thing, and this is coming from a female content creator. When videos like that of mine, they never translate to the kind of following I want to get. They never translate to the kind of dialogue that I'm trying to foster. Okay. But there have been times where a video will hit the algorithm in a certain way and it will have my full body in it. And heaven forbid a woman exists in her body. I always aim to be body neutral. I understand that certain platforms work better, fitness platforms or just general lifestyle platforms. And they're like, when someone's feeling themselves, and I always want people to feel themselves. But based on my interaction with the collective social media community, the online space, hitting the algorithm that way when my full body is in the video feels like physical assault.
Right.
It is so terrifying sometimes. There was a video I made maybe a year and a half ago that's sitting at like 500,000 views of me just enjoying myself. I had like blue checkmark content creators wishing physical harm on me, and I wasn't saying anything except for I wish I was at the game that I was watching on TV. And then my side profile.
And
it was
then
bad.
Everybody was just attacking you.
Yeah.
And
like, women act like they want to know something about sports, but then they make dumb shit like this. And you're like, heaven forbid I engage in this space with you.
I just had about a month ago, I had one of my former players who's now on TV. She's at Local 4 here.
Good for her.
And she's a sportscaster.
Yeah.
And the comments and everything, and women shouldn't do sports, and I see some of them like Mina Kimes, who's on ESPN.
Oh, I feel for her. Mm-hmm.
And I just see the comments, and it's just men just attacking, like, what do you know about football? It's like, she's smarter than most guys that played in the NFL.
She's employed by the very organizations that you give your money to, that you do not take any money from, and that you're probably in debt gambling over with the information that Mina is giving to you.
1,000%.
Oh, why am I so sweaty? I'm like overwhelmed.
Well, I mean, so when my Instagram was like blowing up, I found myself just on the phone, always looking, always refreshing. Like, how many views? Do you go through that at all? Or are you focused about, okay, I'm driving here today, and I'm driving here today, I need to get tickets? Like,
yes, I'll tell you, I do love the dopamine rush of good engagement.
It's definitely dopamine.
Yes, I do have, I would say the time I spend, first of all, I'm a consumer of content before I am a creator. I am chronically online. I do appreciate the spaces that my algorithm has helped me create, especially on TikTok. I think those communities of intellectual conversations, I still engage with politics even though I walked away from it. I really enjoy, I am an avid hobbyist too. I love to sew. I sewed the curtains for my van. I was doing the build out, so I was following a lot of van life people and a lot of woodworking people. I golf. I love to read. I love to go on walks. I got a foldable e-bike. I now am in the conversations that cyclists and the cycling community have. So I engage that way. I have found the kind of content presented to me for soccer is not my favorite. It's a lot of younger guys talking very quickly and breaking down tactics, and that's not the way that I engage. That's the way I engage with my like fantasy group chat or my other spaces when I'm at the game. Like, oh man, they're like the game yesterday. I remember walking away going, oh, I really wish I could talk to someone about how well Flower City 1872 was passing to space. They were possessing well, but it was very noticeable how well they were making great use of open space and not just passing to feet. Am I going to post about that? No, because then I get the actually crowd on the internet. Oh, yeah. But when I engage online right now, when it comes to my own content creation, I know this is a very long-winded way of describing this. It is wading through the DMs to find messages like yours. I love the community that I've built, but one thing I've realized is two sides of the same coin here. People are really proud to be where they're from. They're really proud to support the team that they support. Right. So when you get to a place like Buffalo, I had a conversation yesterday. Niagara 1812 was like, come to one of our games. They're not the only team in town. Like, come on. And I thought, look at your schedule. Where was I going to fit a game of yours in? You're playing away games for the next week. Like, what can I do here?
You want me to stay here for the next week?
Well, and part of me always wants to reply and be like, pay me then. Or give me a free ticket. Because I pay for most of these tickets myself, by the way.
That was one of my next questions.
Yeah. Today is what, Tuesday?
Yeah.
By the end of this week, I don't know when this comes out, but by the end of this conversation, I'll be legitimately unemployed. I had held out with a virtual admin job for as long as I could, and then I realized it just wasn't sustainable to be dripping sweat in my van responding to emails.
Right.
So when I get these DMs, the hope is to, yes, create content in a way that highlights these small teams and small communities. MLS is not the only kind of soccer I enjoy. I legitimately enjoy going to these games, sitting in, and if I didn't make content, I probably would be doing it anyway. The other side of this coin on the content space, though, is that people really love to talk smack about their rivals. So the other day when I was in Columbus for Crew versus FC Cincinnati, half of my DMs were like, boo, boo, Cincinnati. And I'm like, do you know you're literally wasting... Here's the attention you wanted. Congratulations. You are wasting my time and keeping me from finding the DMs that allow me to have great conversation,
right.
Meaningful conversation, or allow me to link up with the retro kit pop-up that's going to be in town that weekend, or all these other opportunities for meaningful dialogue.
Right.
I think last week I did spend probably half an hour going, we get it. You don't like this other town in Ohio. Do you want to know who doesn't care about that? Literally everybody.
Exactly.
Everybody else doesn't care. I'm here for the game. I'm here to have a good time. I am a floozy for like good branding, good players, a good team, a good story. So sometime 3 months from now, when I circle back to Ohio, I will go do the exact same thing at Cincinnati.
Right.
Put the jersey on, stand in the supporter section, act like this is the team I've been following my entire life. Yeah. And you'll like me. So save your breath. Save your breath. We get it. Just stop sending me the throw up emojis if I'm like at your rival's training ground. Who cares?
Is it mostly on TikTok or is it Instagram that you get
Instagram.
Yeah.
Instagram. It's not even hate. It is clearly a desire for attention and engagement.
Right.
And I would say that just comes. That's the nature of my audience.
Okay.
It is majority male. Anywhere between 20 to 40 guys who like to do the like, oh man, I can't believe blah blah blah, like the stuff that's when you're at the game, you trash talk about or you enjoy doing with banter. But I save that stuff for the in-person experience. When I'm making content, I want it to be like yesterday. What did I immediately do when I got to the field? I'm like, okay, this team, thank goodness, provided a lineup in a way that other USLW teams I have gone and seen have not. Who's the most followed girl on this team? What does she do? Where did she come from? What are her interests? And then I immediately look around and go, there are her parents. There's a cluster of people wearing her jersey. There are those girls' parents. There's the dudes from the men's team that probably got done with training and are just watching. What is this ecosystem? What is it like to be in Buffalo, to be playing pre-professional soccer in a space where we are acting like because Messi is here, because Trinity Rodman is getting these like record-breaking contracts for the women's side, we act like we've elevated ourselves to a level of world-class play, and we haven't.
No.
There are still, I'm preaching to the choir, girls and boys in the absolute trenches who can't afford IMG Academy.
Nope.
Whose parents are, I'm one of 4. My parents would have never, ever, ever taken me to the places required to go play at the professional level now.
Or even the youth level.
The
youth level is crazy. So one of the players on FC Buffalo, Carissa Macatrona, top, she coaches for me. And I've trained her since 2016. So I've trained her and known her forever. We talk about it all the time. That back in my day, when I was growing up, my parents couldn't afford the ECNL or the MLS Next or these youth leagues that travel all over the country. There's no way. So I mean, we could get into systems and the entire system,
Right.
the soccer system.
Right.
Do you go to a lot of NWSL games?
Yes.
This episode is brought to you by PlayMaker Training Camp. This summer, we are hosting 2 separate camps in 2 different locations. One in Akron, New York from July 14th to the 17th, and another in Williamsville, New York, July 28th to the 31st. Camp staff are former PlayMaker Training athletes that are currently playing in Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, or former pros. We also have group rates for groups of more than 10 players. We have sibling rates if you have a brother or a sister that would like to join. We also have discounts for choosing to go to both camps. You can register now at playmakertraining.com/summercamps.
Yeah.
So, and I should, to back it all the way up, my content is fan POV content. I think when I was engaging almost exclusively with MLS and then NWSL, it was what are the machinations for supporter culture? What is the vibe here? How are we generating a place in and outside of the stadium that invites people to engage with the sport? And at the end of the day, in the US, and again, I say this as former oil lobbyist, someone who's been in the trenches of the capitalist enterprise for 10 years. My brain and spirit have broken from it in a lot of ways. But I do recognize that America is a capitalist enterprise. And so when I crawl down to USLW or these academies or Next Pro, and I'm showing up and recognizing that I am the only person that isn't related to or dating a player. Yeah, it's at that point where I'm like, oh, wait. This is the pipeline for these kids to be seen and to be developed to pursue something earnestly. And no, it might not be the coolest, sexiest thing for, some of the teams I was looking at for USLW, I'm like, where is that? I have a great knowledge of the US geographically, but some of these places, I'm like, Hudson Valley too. I was like, Hudson Valley, I forgot it existed. They have a USLW team. But it's, to me, I'm like, I'm not going and showing up because I'm expecting drums to be loud and for there to be a huge crowd anymore. Now I'm just interested in a community that has something that is very clearly a pipeline to something greater. Right. And I'm willing to engage with that as a fan and not expect for the supporter infrastructure or for the marketing and the branding and the entire business side of it to be as fully formed, because I'm going and seeing girls trying so much harder than I ever did to make something of this talent that they have. And that's important to me now. Yeah. So when I show up to a game like FC Buffalo and Flower City, there were a couple of dudes with drums. I looked around, I was like, where are the girls? I almost want to start making videos. It's like, hey, I'm going to be in this town. Ladies, come hang out with me. I'm tired of being alone. I will buy you a drink. We'll have a good time. We'll make friendship bracelets, and we'll also scream our heads off. There was a great goal yesterday, and I thought, man, I hope this is being broadcast somewhere, because this is one of the better goals I've seen on my entire road trip.
Was it the FC Buffalo one, or was it the Flower City
Flower
one?
City. Sorry.
The second one?
Yeah.
I was watching at home. I wasn't at the game, but one of the goals was cut off, so it was probably not like, it was like cut off because the camera.
You had to have been there.
Yeah. I was gonna go. But I was training in here, and so like.
You were busy.
I was training in here, and I was like, I'm not gonna go. It's like It's like 30-35 minutes or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But, man, I love it.
I love it too.
I love the story, and I love how your like fan perspective.
Oh yeah.
Versus supporter group. It's not about that at all. Now if a small club has a great supporter group, that's fun to
makes for a great story.
And it makes for a great story. Yeah. But when you said when you posted that you got a lot of messages from other clubs.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There was an owner of a club who was like, "Oh, if you're ever in XYZ place," I'm like, "Hold on, let me Google where that is. Google where that is really quick." Yeah. Or it was the Niagara 1812 women's side. I'm not calling them out. I hope they don't feel like I ever would be. But I have a men's game in Syracuse on the schedule for 2 days from now.
Would that be SDA or what is that?
Syracuse FC NPSL game. I don't even know. What was the acronym you just said?
SDA?
SDA?
I know that's the youth out there. I don't know.
Heaven
so
knows.
NPSL.
Yeah, I can't wait to show up.
All the levels.
Yes.
I love it.
That is important to me. That's very important to me. And it is something that I will continue doing despite whatever direction this heads. I'm trying to be as okay, we'll back up. I spent 10 years in a political career that I really felt strongly about succeeding in spite of my own moral and ethical dilemmas. I think regardless of what side of the aisle we're all on, this is a very, very crazy time in American history. And I had to make a very, very hard choice after summiting a professional mountain and taking a look around and not liking the view to get off the ride, leave the journey entirely. And doing that means it would be a disservice to myself to not make very meaningful moral and ethical choices about whatever I jump into next. So I have a very, I'll say lowercase p, political view on how I approach content. I don't like to film strangers. I don't like to do super shallow content. I feel like there's so much about content made around sports that is very demeaning and doesn't contribute in any sort of meaningful way. And I also don't want to be in a situation where the end goal would be link in my Amazon storefront, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. That's not the kind of stuff I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I didn't set out on this journey in the van to make content. That kind of comes second and third to me, just really trying to reclaim my humanity and my soul. I think anyone in any corporate experience can really, really get bogged down. And I was just so tired. I had been working 18-hour days and living out of a suitcase for like a decade. I was just tired. So now that I'm approaching the road trip and thinking about where I want to stop and what I want to do, to me, it's more important to see the humanity of these spaces than it is for me to go watch good soccer, because that's subjective. And it would be insane of me to follow Messi. We'll use him as an example.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to follow Messi around this country because as great of a player as he is, and I recognize that, I have no emotional connection to him. I'm not Argentinian. I never played at the professional level, so I don't even connect with him on that front. What I love about MLS and watching a lot of American players doing is like representing not just the team, but the college that they went to and where they grew up. And I even following them into Europe. Those things mean something to me. If I find out a player is from Buffalo and I've spent a week here, I'm like, I know exactly what it looked like for you to drive these very well paved roads to fields in the middle of nowhere. And yesterday I showed up and was like, I need a jacket. I thought, I need a jacket at the end of May. Can you imagine playing soccer in some of this weather? Can you imagine all the places that you've traveled to and from Buffalo just to be seen and scouted, or just to play a game that you love, even if it doesn't go to the professional level for you? That's the sort of thing that is important to me. And I just want to do it the right way.
How do you make your schedule? Do you say, okay, I'm in Buffalo, what's happening in Syracuse? Or what's happening in Cleveland? Or what's happening in Toronto? Or do you go league-based? Okay, let me check out an NPSL. Let me check out MLS Next Pro. Let me check out a UWS, or how does that work?
So think of it like Facebook Marketplace. You know how it gives you that mile radius where you're like, I'm looking for something, anything within the 50 miles I'm willing to drive for. I generally know the like benchmark games, Crew and Cincinnati being one of them. Like I said, LAFC at Montreal, because I haven't been to the stadium yet.
Yeah.
You pick those two games. Granted, those are 1 week apart. I don't want to do nearly as much soccer as I have been doing this week, but we'll say they're 1 month apart. I then pick the 400, 500 mile radius. And I go, well, what other cities? Well, I know there's a team here. I know there's a team here. And a lot of this is the knowledge accrued over a decade of following soccer. When I followed DC United, this is actually a great story of how I even knew Flower City existed.
Okay.
Followed DC United. They had Ben Wilson as their coach for a while.
Yep.
When he was finally fired, they hired someone named Hernan Losada, who was Argentinian and had been playing in the Belgian league for, I think, a majority of his career. His very last game he coached with DC United was an Open Cup match against Flower City at Flower City Union. And there had been some rumors. His performance wasn't bad. They weren't getting the greatest results, but it's like your first year, you're adjusting to MLS. MLS is an insane league in and of itself. Playing soccer in America is insane in and of itself. But it was later found out that he just was not great for morale. He was very, very hard-nosed on a lot of things, and it was not great for players' mental and physical health. So I remember watching the game. They won 3-0, but it was announced the very next morning that he was fired. And that was some interesting little drama for me. But in the process of all of that, getting ready for the game, and my content was inconsistent at that point, but I was interested in Flower City's very, like, what is it? I would say European or German ownership model where people could buy a stake in the team.
Right.
And I had made an Instagram post and then posted it to TikTok about it. Just like, for $300, you could be a part owner of this team. I think that's super interesting. What an interesting buy-in. I don't know if they still do it that way, but at the time they did. And I had 3 separate people comment and then subsequently DM me to say, like, I'm from Rochester. That's so cool. I'm a part owner now.
Right.
And Flower City reached out and was like, thank you. This is random, but thank you. And I said, oh, you're welcome. If I ever am in Rochester for some random reason, I'll come watch a game. Cut to now.
Yeah.
Well, that's their I don't know how long their USLW team has been around. That's stuff I need to do my homework on.
It's probably at least 3 or 4 years. I have one player that I've trained for many years that plays for Flower City.
Okay.
Megan Joyer. But that's, wow.
Random. So random.
What? Okay. Where did you go to school? Where did they...
Oh, yes. So I was born in no, I'm just kidding. I'm in my mid-30s.
Okay.
I feel like that's not something I publicized for the longest time because I think starting fresh and people not really knowing my background, I think people think I'm a little bit younger than I am. But I've been around a while, and I played Division III soccer at a super, super small women's college in Georgia. It's called Wesleyan College.
Okay.
There's a handful of Wesleyans.
Yes.
But I don't know. I grew up in a pretty conservative household, so I was not allowed to play soccer on Sundays. And I think the opportunity for me to develop talent that I very clearly had was just never allowed. So when I got to college, I ended up going on a music scholarship and minored in classical piano because Division III doesn't give scholarships for athletics, of course. And we had losing seasons for most of the time that I was there. I have a couple of conference records for the Great South Athletic Conference. I had played striker, but it was grueling. It was thankless a lot of times, and it was hard. I tore my MCL when I was a junior and came back for my senior season, but looking back now, it's a very unique experience that I don't meet a lot of other people having. Because at that point, just be a student. There's no need to be a student athlete. To be a student athlete for Division III, I personally recommend it if you pick the right school. And I'm not saying I picked the wrong school, but I think you have to be in a space where the coach respects that you're a student before you're an athlete. You need to be in a place that you're not in danger of the program closing. We had played Spelman, I think the year after I graduated. Spelman, who is in our conference and a historically black women's college in Atlanta, completely shut down their entire athletics department. And I think we have such a strong emotional connection to college and what college means in society in America that it's hard for me to look back on my college career. So I would feel bad if anyone would pick a program that folded or pick a program that caused them to carry a ton of emotional labor or baggage, rather.
I mean, I don't know if you've watched any of my podcasts, but
I didn't.
There's a reason why it's called I Hate Soccer.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
And so really what I do is I have a lot of our former college players come on and talk about their experience.
Oh, okay.
And I get kids. Then I've learned more about the recruiting process from your podcast than anything else. And really, I think college soccer, I've changed. I used to be like, that's the end all. It was never that's the end all be all, but
it was a step you had to take.
That's what we're building towards.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I really don't care. I care more about you, the person, than I care about like where you're going to college.
Right.
And how many players could go into a coach's office and talk for 3 hours? Not very many.
No.
So it's like relationship building and whatnot. But the college thing, you're spot on.
What I'm now realizing in this moment that it sounds like parents are now just paying the upfront cost that you would spend for college on development instead. And I think my podcast would be called I Hate the NCAA, by the way.
All right.
I have I'm not even going to say love-hate relationship. I do not respect the NCAA. I do not like them. I had a bad experience with them. And again, D3 athlete. You should not be paying attention to what I'm doing. Right. I'm at a women's college with 900 other people trying my dang old best.
Right.
Don't be worried about me. But I think whether they mean to or not, the system set up where parents are paying up the upfront cost to develop a skill instead of waiting and saving all of that and paying for college, is kind of pushing us in the direction of devaluing college. And I hate that because college is for education. And the one thing that's not going to get blown during a game when you get, concussions aside, we'll use that as an exception. But the one thing that's not going to absolutely ruin and devastate your career randomly on a Tuesday during training is your brain. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, that's another thing I struggle with is the fan POV side. I respect what supporters are doing. I want to amplify what supporters are doing, but I don't want to give them more than they are due because there are a lot of kind of navel-gazing, self-important supporters who think that the reason why their multi-million dollar MLS entity exists is because of them. Untrue. But then on the other side of it, I like talking with some players and I love bringing the human side of the game when I make content and have conversations with them. But sometimes I'm talking to these folks, I'm like, you have no personality. You have been playing soccer your whole life. And when you and I part ways, you will continue doing that. And then we follow each other. I'm followed by a couple dozen players, mostly men, because that's the space that I started in. They are the first to look at my stories. They are always on the internet. They live to scroll. They're training, they're eating, they're sleeping, they're on social media. They're not doing anything else. Maybe if they're going abroad and playing, they're learning the language that they're playing. Mm-hmm. When they leave their career, they're getting into real estate, training, that they're staying in the same spaces that they exist, but they're not doing anything that exerts any real brain power. Or they're starting a nonprofit to make something of their name and legacy.
Yep.
It's tough because you know this. It's a very narrow window wherein you can have a career as a player.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode of the I Hate Soccer podcast. If you feel stuck in your recruiting process, we created a guide that includes feedback from 15 college coaches and 10 current college soccer players. Inside this guide, you'll find out what really works in recruiting, from showcases, ID camps, highlight reels, and more. Check it out at playmakertraining.com/recruited.
What do you do after that?
Here's you nailed it about the front end cost versus paying for all this ECNL. And I feel like these kids feel the pressure to play college soccer when they don't really want to give their parents an ROI on spending $10,000 per year for 4, 5, 6 years, and it's like, well, I have to play college soccer, and then a lot of them are miserable, or they don't actually love the game, or they don't love the grind that you were talking about. Not everybody loves it.
My cousin, her name's Andrea. She's in her 40s now, but she had a full ride to play as a keeper at Furman around the same time like Clint Dempsey was there, early 2000s. And we haven't talked about it much, and we didn't talk about it much when I was making the decision. I'm the only kid in my family that played sports as long as I did, but played it into college. And the blueprint that we had with Andrea was it. I only really understood it from the outside that, that this is an opportunity. I didn't really understand the opportunities presented to me because, again, if you're not playing soccer on Sundays, you're not even in the same vicinity of those parents and coaches and mentors having conversations with you about what your options are. But it wasn't until recently when I went back, because I was in Greenville, South Carolina at a game, shocker. And I rolled up and was like, oh my gosh, Furman's campus. And I went and looked at some of her records. And she still holds a ton. She was a fantastic player. I had gone back up to North Carolina and was staying with my aunt and uncle. I was like, why didn't Andrea ever do anything after Furman? And they said, well, separate from the fact that the opportunities for women there just really didn't exist in the professional capacity in 2004, they said her coaches, specifically her coach at Furman, beat the love of the game out of her and so many other players. And I thought, what? I have spent all this time in these spaces with people who are all of the influencers now are like former pros, girls who didn't play in the league as long for injury or for other choices or whatever, fit, attractive, cool, know the industry, are in a space where I am just peering in from the outside and going, oh, wow, that's how that works. I had no idea. And of course, I'm starting all over. If they were in my political space and industry, I'm sure I would be having conversations with them where they would think the same thing on their end. But I feel so blessed to not have a miserable outlook on all of that. I'm grateful that I don't feel like I had a wasted childhood or that I had a wasted college career. I feel very, very blessed for that. And I don't wish that on anyone. I would hope whatever effort that they are putting in or that the sacrifices that their parents are making for them would have an adequate ROI.
Right.
Reflective of that work. But there's so many, for all the dudes you see, the Kevin Sullivans, the Sullivan family in Philadelphia, which, by the way, that entire episode of the Onside documentary series that Apple's doing, I was like, man, it's the parents living through their children.
A little bit.
And it stresses me out because I think you have a whole life ahead of you when your parents pass and when your career ends. And what are you doing with that?
I had a sports psych on, and we were talking about how so often that these kids are identified as soccer players, and then what happens when you're not a soccer player anymore? What are you? Who am I? A lot of these parents identify as being a soccer mom or a soccer dad. What happens when the games stop? What kind of relationship are you building with your kids if it's all soccer?
Yeah. It's not a good relationship.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's wild, you know? And that's why I do what I do. I'm not club affiliated. And for the most part, all the kids that come in and we train, they enjoy the game for the most part, or they at least want to be there and they want to get better.
Yeah.
And I don't have to deal with some of the chaos that some club, being a coach of a club is. And that's why I still love it. I don't hate soccer.
I know, it's hyperbolic.
Yeah, exactly. But I see what these kids go through, and I see what these families go through. I see what these coaches go through. I don't understand how I came up through Michigan. I'm from originally Kansas City, but
I wondered with because I used to live in River Market.
Where's that?
Downtown.
In downtown Kansas City.
It's actually literally half a mile from the new stadium.
Yeah.
I should have bought property when I was there, but I didn't.
The Women's Stadium on the river. Have you been there yet?
Oh yeah. Okay. To prove that it's not just MLS I care about, I was at the Big 12 final.
Yep.
With KU and was it TCU last November?
And that was at the current.
It was
stadium.
at the current stadium. Again, it's like parents. All the parents were there, and then me randomly.
That was like November, probably?
Yeah.
It was probably freezing.
It wasn't bad. I'll tell you what was cold. So I had been in Kansas City at that time. My grandfather passed away in November, and I thought the blessing of having a flexible schedule is that you can be there for moments like this. So I was already planning on getting back to Georgia at the end of the year. So I did that game, drove all the way to North Carolina, was there with my family because that's where he was. My parents are in Georgia. And then went down to Georgia, and the Washington Spirit, who are my ride or die NWSL team, made it to the final. And I was like, wait, I should fly out for that. I have to fly out for that. So I flew out for that, and that game was cold. But it was cool to see both of those. It was cool to see both of those games at the same place and see just how different it is. One of them obviously packed out. Every brand is there, every sponsor, every activation, everything. And then the Big 12 and KU, I mean, total underdog. And it was cool because they were technically the local team.
For sure.
So,
yeah, it's 30 minutes.
But that's what I like. I like seeing, I don't know if explaining it as the dichotomy of soccer, or just the difference, the juxtaposition. Let me think of another buzzword. I like the difference.
So you go to college. You go to college games.
Oh, heck.
You go to NWSL games. You go to UWS games. You go to USLW games.
Yeah.
You go to MPSL games. I mean,
I went to the street soccer qualifiers, local qualifiers in San Diego, and the team that won that day went on to the actual street soccer World Cup.
What about beach soccer? Have you seen any beach soccer yet?
No.
I would love to see like legit beach soccer players. It's all in the air.
Yeah.
And the ball has to be in the air the entire time, and it's wow.
Yeah. What other soccer? I haven't done any indoor yet.
Yeah.
And part of what I'd like to do more of is playing my own pickup and rec league.
Yep.
I've had a couple of people introduce me that I've been introduced to at games. It'll say like, hey, we have a pickup game, blah, blah, blah. In fact, I'll tell you what, this is the most perfect example of the beauty of this entire situation for me. I was in LA last year. I went to an LAFC game, and I had flown out for the Gold Cup final. I don't know why I wanted to go so bad. I was like, I had gotten tickets through somebody, and I was like, let me just leave the van behind, fly out to Miami, go to this game, and come back. That was the most harrowing experience of my life. I just am so traumatized by the amount of people that were climbing walls, hopping over barricades. At the end of it all, they just let everybody in. They opened the gates, and I got to my seat, and I was like, hey, this is my seat. And this guy's like, no, it's not. I had to stand and watch the entire time because someone wouldn't give up the seat that I had paid
People
for.
have died in situations like that in Europe.
Yeah, I know. That was...
in South America and maybe Mexico recently.
So
I think it was South America.
that's kind of the argument that I got in with this gentleman. I love him to death. His name is Jerry. I consider him one of my absolute best friends of this entire experience and would consider him a lifelong friend after everything that went down when I was in LA. We were at this game, tailgating, hanging outside of the stadium, and I had said I'd just come from that experience, and someone said, "Oh yeah, she lives in a van, she travels for soccer," and he goes, "Oh, have you been to a game here before?" And I said, "Yeah, I have, but it was a Wednesday game. It was a DC United was playing, so DC United has been awful for the past decade. The entire time that I've followed them, they have been abysmal. But I went out to watch them on a Wednesday. I was like, it was kind of a bummer. And then the LAFC supporter section got in their own little civil war outside of the stadium at the end of the day. So I was like, it was whatever. And I said, but I have been to a game at LA Galaxy. And of course he's like, F LA Galaxy. And I was like, buddy, no one cares. No one, literally, this team would not exist without the work that LA Galaxy has done. But of course, I'm not going to get in a fight because I've seen you guys fight each other, and I'm not about to do this. But I said something about the Gold Cup. Is it? It's not Gold Cup. It's
U.S. Or you're not talking about Lamar Hunt?
No,
US
the
Open.
Argentina-Colombia game last year.
No, that's Gold Cup.
It is Gold Cup? Okay. I'm getting there's too much soccer, by the way. That would be another podcast name of mine. There's too much soccer going on.
Or is that was that the Copa?
It's Copa. It's Copa America.
Yeah.
I don't know soccer, everybody. I'm just here to show my pretty face. But yeah, so I was telling him.
Did you get that?
You know what?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Like in person.
No. In person?
It's always DMs.
Yeah.
Or comments on content.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll say this too. I've experienced in the political space, and I'm touching on it only a little bit because I don't want to dive in. It's not the point of your podcast, but I had gotten.
I'd like to know, though.
Oh yes. Well, I had gotten severely cyberbullied, threatened, and doxxed back in 2020 when it was found out that I was working in Republican politics. And at that point, I was having a really hard time with the goings on in Washington, in America. COVID was happening. It was a lot. It was a lot that I was experiencing. It was not when the seed was planted that I wanted to leave, but it was when I was reaching my limit with my own professional career. And again, I love supporter culture. I love the place that they have in the larger soccer landscape, but it's a very, very progressive space. And you would have thought I was like the leader of a hate organization, the way that people responded to me in this situation. And it's kind of put me on edge in a lot of ways. The things that people had said to me at that point, cartoonishly mean, and again, threatened. I got threatened, and a lot of my family members were doxxed. It was not a good experience. But what was crazy about that was when I continued to go out and meet people and engage with supporters and supporter culture, to my face, no one has ever told me that they've hated me.
Right. To
my face, no one has ever told me I'm a bad person. When people meet me, they have never had an issue.
Right.
They're interested in what I'm saying. I am a dutiful listener. Yeah. I feel like, again, this journey I'm on is a search for humanity, my own and others.
Right.
I think we spend so much time online just always demanding that either everyone else's POV somehow fit our narrative, or demanding that everyone see things through our own lens. It's why if I'm driving slow on the road, which I do because the van is in kilometers and I'm not about to sit there and do the math on how far below the speed limit I'm going, the thought for someone is like, honk, 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 flip me off, and then immediately go to social media and be like, people on the road these days drive too slow. And then you've got thousands of other people who are like, yeah, screw them. And you're like, what is happening? What is happening?
See, like when I saw your story, I didn't think about like, oh, she's an FC Buffalo fan, or oh, she's Flower City fan, or how many people are
Project.
the reverse? No, how many of the reverse or compliment you like you're so brave?
Oh,
for
tons.
Your corporate. I'm not gonna say comfortable job because cannot be a comfortable job.
Mentally, it was not comfortable, but I need you to
cannot
understand I was golfing like 2-3 times a week. I was so good at golf. I was hanging out in places I had no. I know. I was hanging out in places.
In Michigan next week.
Oh, where at?
We do a Ryder Cup, me and my buddies.
No way.
Yeah, there's like 36
that
of us. We go every single year. We used to go to different courses every year, but now it's like the third year in a row. We're going to Agaming. It's like up here in
Traverse City.
This is what, Torch Lake.
Okay.
Yep.
So before I got in the van, fall of 2020, Southwest had this deal because they're so desperate for people to get back in the air.
After COVID and everything.
Yeah, and I love Southwest because you could check your golf bags for free. I ended up picking.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they do that now? Or was that just a COVID thing?
No, it's always been that way. I don't know if they've changed the policy recently with the cost for bags, but I have always checked my golf clubs for free. But I did a solo trip, rented a car, packed a checked bag with camping gear, and flew into
Charlevoix, probably.
no, what's in the
Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids. I flew into Grand Rapids
yeah.
and then drove all the way up, and then all the way up to the very little, I called it the witch's finger of like Harbor City in the Upper Peninsula, and caught peak foliage.
Yeah.
And I listened to Taylor Swift's Folklore almost the entire time. I cried, I laughed, I found myself.
See my logo? The PlayMaker Training logo? So it's two states. So it's New York and then it's Michigan. So
Does that not look like a witch's finger?
a little bit.
I drove all the way up.
That's up near, okay. That's near like,
Way up there.
Mount Bohemia. And wow.
Yeah, well, okay, to your point, yes, I get so many. Not only do I get, I won't say compliments, I get a lot of positive feedback on what I'm doing. And there have been a handful of people that I've plucked out of the DMs and met in person. And the conversations that we have, so meaningful. I feel so edified by the positive feedback I get because I think, again, this is such a weird time in American history. We're all coming out of one of the most isolating experiences that this country has ever had.
Right.
And to see all of the opportunity that I had ahead of me professionally and say no thank you and take a leap. Even today, I started the morning in a bad mood. I did cry. I stepped on a pair of my sunglasses that I had been taking such good care of because they're so stupid expensive. Did you see how it kind of led me into an existential spiral? Yeah, it's broken.
I didn't see the one past, like, you shattered the lens.
The comment on the photo was basically like, I could go into detail about just how hard it has been to live outside of the conventional structure of a 9-to-5 in a corporate world and to do something all by myself with no manual. Because regardless of the van life videos I've watched, no one is doing it in a van of my size. Mm-hmm. No one is doing it. The kind of people that are living the van life that I'm living are doing it not by choice. They're doing it because they are homeless. And when I engage with people who are living my exact lifestyle, they don't have the loving and financial support lended to them by either the money I've saved up or my parents have been very helpful a couple of times in this.
Right.
It is a completely different space. And it's so hard for me, because, and this kind of goes back to what I bet a lot of your students are experiencing, these young folks playing soccer, they are doing what they are told every day. They are growing up in a very rigid structure that is created for them. And there is only one type of success in that scenario. And it happiness and self-fulfillment, whether they mean for it to or not, it passively comes secondary to all of that.
Yep.
And when you make a conscious choice to live outside of that structure, whether it be what my parents have envisioned for me, what society tells me is a successful career, what it is supposed to look like for me as a woman in my mid-30s, I should be married and having children right now. I should have figured so much of my life out by now. I should be owning a home by now. To step outside of that and to pick what you do every day is so exciting for people. And those are the positive messages I get. And they do say, yes, it's brave. The bravery, there's some days where I'm like, I don't even want to be here anymore. I don't understand how anyone is doing this and having a good time. Though some days are like that. But it is not because living in a van is difficult. It is because there is a mental hurdle I'm still overcoming of what it looks and feels like to be doing the exact opposite of what I've spent my entire life being told I'm supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. And that's tough. And sometimes when you break a pair of your sunglasses randomly in a Target parking lot, that's where your brain goes, because you're like, why am I even doing this? I have to buy new sunglasses. Is it even worth it? I don't have any money. Like, it's just like all this stuff. So, yeah, I can't even imagine. It is unfathomable to me to be in the high pressure situation of some of the kids that you train.
How long
are we? Wait, before you keep going, are we being cohesive right now? Am I making sense?
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, 100%. How long does it take you, or did it take you, to get comfortable doing everything alone?
Because great question.
That's the entrepreneur life. Building a business by yourself, no help. Seemingly, it feels like no support other than my family. People hating on you because you're providing something different. So like at the beginning of this 10 years ago, clubs weren't very happy with what I was doing because they thought that I was starting a club.
Oh, okay.
I just want to train kids. And
yeah.
So, I've been very vocal of what's wrong with some organizations or some clubs, some leagues, everything. And I'm very vocal, and that's kind of like my brand and whatnot. So what's that like? How just getting over just
being by myself,
going to eat by yourself, driving cross country by yourself.
So this is actually not the weirdest thing I've done by myself. I think I went to the World Cup in 2022 by myself.
Qatar?
I did 19 games in 16 days in the group stage by myself. I had two friends that had very kindly kind of collectively put me in the bids that they were making for tickets. But I think we sat together for 2 or 3 of those games. And I knew roundabout where they were, but they were traveling together doing their own thing. One time I showed up in Columbus, Ohio a couple years ago to go see the last game of the regular season that they were playing for funsies, because I like Columbus, and the drive from DC to Columbus is actually beautiful. Right. And I realized that Ohio State was hosting College Game Day because they were playing Michigan. Mm-hmm. And I waited in line all night by myself with a bunch of college students for College Game Day so I could be in the front row and watch. Who's that blonde guy? I hate him so much.
Which one? The younger one?
The big dude. The big, blonde, loud dude.
Oh, Pat McAfee.
I hate him.
Pat McAfee.
Golly.
Vocal, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think I've never been afraid to do things myself because I have a lot of social anxiety about managing other people's emotions. And so many of the trips I was taking, it was my fear of rejection and anxiety meant that I was too afraid to ask guys that I was dating or friends that I had to come with me to watch Major League Soccer even. And then I thought, well, how would they even feel if I was going to some random town to go watch an even worse, an even lesser known, even worse quality soccer. And because I had season tickets to DC United, and it got to a point where I would invite friends and they'd be like, Cheyenne, I don't want to go. I don't want to go do that. And that's not because the game itself was bad. It was just because not everyone likes soccer. And soccer is one part of all of these other hobbies I have and so many other different things I was doing with my life and other places where my attention was going. So I've never really been afraid of doing things alone. But what I will say is part of the conscious uncoupling of me from the professional space I was in is recognizing that America has a problem with its rabid individualism. We are not solo actors trying to make it in this world. Someone who goes on to play professionally did not do it because they grinded. They did it because their parents paid for your help. They played on a team of other people. They were in a community of people who all understood the goal. And even if your kids were competing with each other for that spot, at the end of the day, they needed each other to be the team. And when I set out on the journey last year, because I was so desperate to get the van when it first touched down in the US, I had never spent any time as an adult in the Pacific Northwest. I had my friend who helped me import say, I know a guy from Facebook who works with Japanese vehicles. He'll meet you at port in Tacoma and he'll help you take your seats out of the van. I said, okay. I showed up. Customs took quite a bit of time to get the van off of the container. And I had found an Airbnb in Tacoma, and it was a woman who owned a house who specifically rented to other women just as a safe space because it was a house with about 4 bedrooms in it. And I had met her and I was explaining to her the situation, and she goes, how many more nights do you think you need? And I said, probably 2. She goes, don't worry about paying me. That is community. I would not have been able to do that grind by myself. Right. Cut to 2 weeks later, my BFF Rocky, who I've been in an MLS fantasy league with for almost a decade now. It's a weird collection of dudes, former players, guys who work for Adidas, one guy who's a broadcaster for the Apple TV broadcast for Major League Soccer. Sorry. Rocky had a wedding in Portland. And I was the only person of that friend group that stayed the next day because I didn't have anywhere to fly to. And at that point, I'm on an air mattress with a sleeping bag. And I'd bought one of those, like, little drawers from Target that I assembled in the back to put some of my stuff in. Rocky said, hey, I have an uncle. His name's Ted. He lives down in Southern California, which is actually where I'm from. He's going to be at brunch tomorrow and he really wants to see your van. Like, you should show him. He's built out like his RV, his 4Runner. He's retired and he loves cars. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm kind of embarrassed because it's super messy. Every night I just shove my stuff from one side to the other so I can put my stuff down and sleep. I'm taking it day by day. I'm a little stressed out. I'm kind of going through the motions, but I'm just excited to be free and to be out of my parents' household and to be trying something new, whatever. My brain had truly broken. I think in hindsight, I'm like, what the heck were you thinking? Right. But I say all this, and what I'm about to describe is to truly iterate the point that it is not a solo endeavor. I have found such a beautiful community. And Jerry, even, who I didn't finish that story, but his uncle looked at my vehicle. We had a couple back and forths on the type of vehicle it was, what I was planning to do with it, whatever. And I kept saying, like, I don't know. I'm just taking it day by day. I don't know what I'm going to do with the build out. A bed and a bench somewhere, because eventually I'd like to interview players and other people in it. I think that would be really fun.
That'd be sweet.
And I've done that a couple times now. I would have never been able to do it with Ted's help, because Ted said, I don't know how you're going to do it if you're in a part of the country where you have no resources. This is kind of crazy. I can't believe that it's all unfolding it this way. And he said, are you going to be down in Southern California at all? And I said, yeah, I'll be there for most of the summer. And he said, well, Shelly and I, his wife, would love to host you. I've got an entire like workspace in my garage. The least I could do, I would really like to help at least build like a bed bench combo. And in the 6 weeks that it took me to get down to Southern California from Portland, he was texting me and calling me with all sorts of ideas and said, I do think we should gut the whole thing and just do a full build for you. He did it free of charge. I paid for the materials. I spent a collective 2 weeks at his place. Shelly made every meal for us. We spent every single one of those days in his garage and in the driveway, completely gutting my van and rebuilding it. I have a bed, twin size bed, and it folds up into
kind of like a Murphy bed.
No, it's a bench, and you pull it, and it kind of like two combs that go this way.
Yeah.
So the width is a standard twin, and then I shortened the length a little bit, but the length runs parallel to the van. A sink. I've got shelving space. I've got it like a little pull out so I can use my laptop. And I now have a solar panel on the top and a roof rack and a foldable e-bike. But he was like, I hated the thought that you might be having to figure this all out yourself and that you might have to be living this way until you got back to the East Coast. And I just know they don't have kids, but he was like, if I had a daughter, I would be doing the exact same thing for her.
Of course.
And I thought, this isn't the solo grind.
Right.
Jerry, after we got in our little tizzy outside of whatever the stadium is called now, LAFC's stadium, where I'm like, buddy, it's not soccer culture to be fearing for your life at a game. And he's like, well, that's how it is outside of America. I'm like, well, for America to make it, I don't want to be fearing for my life in or out of a game, okay? Like, let's get that straight. But it was funny because he's like full-blown Chicano, Mexican-American, born and raised in LA, diehard LA guy.
Yeah.
And I grew up in and around San Diego and then LA County, just north of LA. And I'm very white. So at the end of it.
Were you born there? Are you originally from California?
I wasn't born. I was born in Mississippi because my dad was in the Navy. But we spent most of my childhood in San Diego.
Okay.
In Southern California. So, but I told him, I was like, I can't help it. Like it's not that I want it to be vanilla. I know vanilla is like my culture, but I want to be safe. So we were bantering back and forth. I'm like, this dude is an a-hole. I'm annoyed that I'm having to fight. And I felt like my shoulders were so tense and we were like in each other's faces about it. I think he had a little bit to drink. And my friend that I had met again through the internet came over and was like, you guys okay? And I don't know what it was in my mind to diffuse the situation. I was like, Andrew, you interrupted. We were about to kiss right now. And he laughed. Jerry laughed. I was like, okay, all fine. I'm not going to get beat up. We'll be okay. Jerry was never going to beat me up. I think we were just bantering back and forth. But we walk into the stadium together because we're headed to the supporter section. And I was like, I'm Cheyenne, by the way. He's like, I'm Jerry. And I said, like my friend Andrew says, I live in a van, travel for soccer. If you know of any pickup games. And he goes, oh, I run a pickup league in Pasadena. We play on Wednesday nights. You should come. And I said, yeah. So we exchanged Instagrams. I show up Wednesday. Between then and when I left LA was about 3.5 weeks. I think we spent accumulatively probably 3 days worth of time together. And there was one day where we went down to downtown LA and we walked for blocks of him showing me all of these truly authentic historical places in LA and all these places that make these great stories during Hispanic Heritage Month or Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month that LAFC is doing. But it's like culture that truly is breathing its last breath as the nature of the city changes, but it's stuff that he grew up around. We went out to Long Beach where dudes who also have Japanese vehicles park and take pictures of their cars. We had some amazing food. I played, I think, 3 Wednesdays worth of pickup soccer, and I met so many people, so many more people. He helped me tune up some of my the issues that I was having with my van. And I thought, none of this would have happened if I hadn't put myself into this community.
Right.
And sometimes when I show up to games and the vibe isn't there, the crowd isn't there, whatever, and I'm there by myself and I think, I didn't make content about any of this. I don't have anything exciting to share about any of this. I still recognize that I physically put myself in a new space, and that at the end of the day, even if I didn't meet anyone there, we were all watching that game together.
Right.
And I have met a Jerry in almost every city that I've been to.
Yeah.
I was just in Charlotte. A girl's like, here's the fob to my apartment building garage so that you have a place where you can open up your van and clean it out and it not be on the side of the road. You let me know if you need anything. And we ended up getting dinner a couple times after that. And we showed up to these restaurants and they're like, Diana, so good to see you. Here's an appetizer. Here, but she was a girl who had put in the work, the time and work in her community.
Yeah.
And people loved her. And she's like, this is my friend Cheyenne. She's visiting from blah, blah, blah. She lives in a van. This is what she's doing. And they're like, Cheyenne, oh my gosh, here's where you have to go for breakfast. Here's the place that you go for a good time on a Sunday afternoon in the park. Here's the places you should be like weary of. This is the thing that is peak quintessential Charlotte. We hope you have a good time. We hope you enjoy our city. Isn't that great?
It is great.
But I don't exist in a vacuum. I do feel so alone, and I am alone so much. But when I show up and participate in the community that soccer has created, I become a part of something.
Yeah.
And I really, really like that.
Now, are you keeping track of all, like, the great 48 that you've been to?
Mm-hmm.
Have you been to every single state?
In my
game in every single
no,
state?
and I don't think that I'll get there with I don't think I'll get there anytime soon. By the way, I think I'll live in the van probably till the end of maybe next year.
The World Cup.
Yeah.
What are your plans for the World Cup?
I need either brand partnerships to get me tickets,
Okay.
so that I can get access, because I paid my way through Qatar and that was so expensive, or I need a sugar daddy. So let's make either one of those happen, please, universe.
Okay, so let's talk about sponsorships, though.
Yeah.
Do you have any right now?
I just signed a contract with Continental Tire, who's been a longtime sponsor of MLS, and they're paying me in tires, which I really need and I really appreciate.
Right. How many miles have you put on that thing?
14,000. I started.
That'd be way more than that.
Yeah, right? 14 feels like a lot for it just being probably 10 months worth of driving.
Right.
But also, I am very blessed. My friend helped me pick a good car at auction. It only had 70,000 miles when I got it. And it's a 1994 Toyota Hiace. Super custom limited is what it's called. The decal on the side.
Old.
Oh, yeah. The decal on the side says it's a living saloon. And the only major exterior work I've done to it was I got both the bumpers painted. It's in pretty decent shape right now. I would like to beautify it if I'm going to use it for content.
Right.
Some more, but that stuff's expensive.
So you got Continental?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? How many followers do you have on TikTok right now?
Oh, heavens. 3,000.
Okay.
3,000 on TikTok.
6,000 on Instagram, I saw.
6,700.
Sorry.
Get it straight.
6.7.
No, just kidding. I have maybe 1,500 YouTube subscribers.
Okay.
And then about 7,000 Twitter followers.
That's I'm thinking about the content that you're trying.
Well,
what's your favorite kind of content? In the game, outside the game, talking about the game after?
I like
podcast.
I love to hear myself yap. Can you tell? So my end goal, well, not even my end goal, my starting goal. I'm buried buried under terabytes of video I've just taken over the years that I've never edited. Part of my issue that I'm coming out of right now, and since I'm about to be fully unemployed, I think a lot of this is going to change so much for the better, help me down the path that I'm headed. My issue has been that I have awful perfectionist tendencies, and I am chronically and terminally ill with self-awareness. I am constantly asking myself, who the heck cares? Why does it matter? Who cares what you have to say? So many other people are doing this with a much better perspective. Why do they want to hear me? And then when I experienced that insane cyberbullying event, I thought, some of these people have said online that they will not stop until I am no longer a part of this space, or that I don't even deserve to be here or alive. And it's not that I took that to heart. I think my particular set of mental health issues has always kind of forced me to ask those questions of myself, even when I haven't wanted to. But now that I've gotten my mental health under control, which was hard enough to do on its own, now that I'm in a place where I recognize the value I do provide, what I would really like to do are content that still focuses on me and my journey, because that's my unique perspective. Mm-hmm. I think that the recap of games and who scored and how well they played is going to be beat to death by everybody else. What I would like to do is exist in the space, and I said this earlier, MLS acts like because it has Messi, they are world class. We are not world class.
No.
But in that effort to commodify soccer and push it to that stage, we're missing all these really great, quirky, weird, funny, interesting stories and experiences in these lower divisions and in these communities, where every single game, no matter the level that I have shown up and watched, has had a kid in a pink Messi jersey there. We all love soccer. We all appreciate soccer at the highest level. We all care about the big name players. But I want to exist in the space where we're having conversations about what it's like to show up every day and actually play it, or what soccer looks like in this specific community. Who is, in a shallow way, who's the Messi of this community? Or who's the coach that has been coaching this particular high school girls team for 40 years and who has a perspective on not just the changing nature of the sport in the community, but how did a city like Buffalo manage, again, political background, how did the city like Buffalo manage the 2008 recession? How did the city of Buffalo manage COVID?
Yeah.
How did you manage as the coach of a high school girls team who, again, high pressure situation. These are the 4 years I have to prove myself. Those are the 4 years COVID happened. How did that affect you? How did that affect your relationship with the sport, your relationship with the players? How did you adapt? What does it look like? When you guys think of the World Cup coming, of course, the closest place to go see those games are going to be Toronto.
Yep.
Or New York.
New York City. Yep.
What is Buffalo doing? Do they have, this is another thing, all of these women's specific soccer or sports bars, women's sports bars are popping up.
Really?
It's a phenomenon.
Where's this?
Oh, heavens. There's plenty. I think the first one that ever started was called Sports Bra. It's in Portland, Oregon.
I've seen that somewhere.
Because their marketing is fantastic.
Yeah, I've seen that on Instagram.
And good on them. But then I think, okay, that's really great. And this isn't like but what about the men? Because I don't really feel that bad for them. However, this Apple TV deal has created a situation where unless a bar specifically opts in with the DirecTV package that allows them access to MLS games,
you can't watch.
Yeah, and then here's the other gripe I have. People are like, well, first of all, the dumb argument, it's called football. Okay, great. I'm calling it soccer because when I say I'm having a hard time watching soccer at a bar, I don't mean the stuff that your weird British, like, immigrant who has a bar who is willing to show his favorite childhood team, and then all these other games at
Socceristas.
7 a.m. or 8 a.m.
I can't stand the Socceristas.
Yeah, I'm talking about when I go to a bar, that same bar that says they are the soccer bar in town, and say, hey, do you guys have, and I'll say, do you guys have the MLS game on? I was in Denver last year, and it was the Whitecaps were playing Portland. And so I said, the Whitecaps Timbers. And this girl's like, what? And I said, the Vancouver Whitecaps is a playoff game for Major League Soccer. The Vancouver Whitecaps are playing the Portland Timbers. And she goes, what channel is it on? And I said, okay, so someone on Reddit said that you have the DirecTV package and that you have access to this game. It's technically on MLS Season Pass. I could cast it to this TV. No one else is in this bar because, by the way, the food is god awful. The ambiance is awful. There's dust everywhere. I know you served your 7 a.m. crowd, but I want to watch this MLS game, please. And then they'll just scroll. They're like, okay, the only thing I see is it says Van and Pour, and you're like, yes, Vancouver and Portland. That is the game. Can I please watch it in this corner? And then I'm like, and God forbid it's an awful game, because by the way, MLS is not always the greatest quality still. That's what I want us to recognize. It's not that I want to say it's bad, we don't need to support it. It's that we have to stop acting like we are world class. Enjoy it for what it is.
Have you gotten, okay, let's say you're at a bar and you're trying to get the MLS game on.
Yes.
Will people be like, we're not watching that?
Yes.
There's a
World Series.
EPL or any
EPL, yeah.
Oh, for sure that.
So I went to this, I won't call out Denver, maybe I will. I went to this bar. I was in my van parked down the street, and I was in the middle of like getting dressed, putting my face on, whatever. And I thought, okay, wait, some game, it was the World Series, and they have 40 freaking TVs. And of course it was, because it was LA and New York, it's like everyone in the country cares. The Rockies, if it was Rockies, it would be even crazier. But because it's like the two biggest teams in baseball, I called and said, hey, I know you guys are probably showing the World Series today, but do you have even a single TV that's going to be showing? It was Miami playing somebody else. Right. I can't remember. But it was that game that was just on for me for the evening, and I didn't want to sit in the van. I didn't want to go for a walk. I just wanted to eat and watch a game. I was on hold for 17 minutes, and I put my phone down, and I continued to get dressed, put my shoes on, and I walked the 2 blocks to the restaurant. And I get to the hostess stand, and I was like, I've been on hold. So I've been on hold for, at that point, it was now like, I don't know, 20 minutes tops. I'm not exaggerating. I don't want you to think I'm exaggerating the story, but they did not have a TV turned on to that game, but they were willing to make an exception for one of the TVs. So I was in the corner just like hanging out. And the craziest part was this dude walks up to me. I forget his name now. I feel bad. But he's like, oh, are you watching MLS? I'm like, yes, whatever. And he had Dodgers gear on. And I said, wow, are you watching baseball? Like, he said, yeah. And I said, yeah, I asked for them to turn this one TV on. I hope it's not in your way, just being fun, whatever, flirty. He said, oh, no, I'm actually glad this game is on too. I work for the Colorado Rapids, and I'm from LA, so I'm like super excited about the game, but this game's over now. And I kind of wanted to watch soccer too. And I said, well, this was the place recommended to me by someone in the supporters section. And I got here and I had to ask for them to turn it on. So like, you're welcome, basically saying you're welcome. And he sat down next to me, watched the whole game together. And then we went and met up with a handful of other Colorado Rapids front office folk at another bar. And I was like, this is how I made friends.
And then that's the community.
Yeah. Yeah. But I had to ask. And it was like, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we'll do it.
So do you still have a place like in DC? No.
All my stuff is at my parents' house in Georgia. We moved to Georgia. Yeah. So my dad was in the Navy, a JAG officer in the Navy, and retired and was a federal prosecutor of all things. And there's a federal law enforcement training center down on the coast of Georgia. Okay. And he taught immigration and customs enforcement officers. He retired in heavens years ago.
So this is actually one of my best friends who is an officer. This is from Bagram, but he also worked air base in Afghanistan. And then he was part of ICE, and I have one of his ICE coins.
Did he have to do training at FLETC in Brunswick, Georgia?
I don't know. His story is interesting. He tried to go to college, didn't think it was for him, so he went into the Navy for 4 years. Then he went to University of Michigan, graduated, went back into the Army as an officer, and now he's just in the reserves. But he was over there. He was doing something for ICE. I don't know exactly, but then he was in Afghanistan on a couple tours or whatnot. But
yeah,
he's like one of the guys. He lives in Georgetown right now. So he's one of my buddies that acts like he's a little bit more important than he is. That happens a lot in DC. He's like, I'm not at liberty to say what I'm doing, and then I'm like, dude, I know your security clearance. My other best friend has the exact same security clearance.
Those are also the same dudes, by the way, that let our enemies find out our own freaking secrets because they couldn't not upload their runs to Strava when they were in Afghanistan. That's my thing, is there's so much ego involved with all of that. And like, at the end of the day, you jockeyed your way into all of this with a confidence that I was unfortunately not born with. And I hate it. I hate it. Yes.
So when I went to DC, visited him, it was my first time in DC, and I look around, I'm like, never have I seen so many small fish in a big pond that think that they're big fish.
1,000%.
And I'm like, and then they were basically the same. They're like, man, you've been here 30 minutes and you already have DC figured out. And it's like, and you were there for 10 years.
Yeah, but they're stuck in this loop. I was stuck in the loop. The smartest people, the hardest working people, and the most humble people don't pick the federal government. They don't pick DC because they recognize DC is kind of it impedes on our ability to operate and to get things done.
Right.
And it's kind of it's a lot of really fast paced nothing. It's like, I had so many jobs where the mentality was like, your butt is going to be in the seat to prove your worth. And I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, but we're working on a cycle. I'm about to spend the entire summer and fall living at a budget hotel. Or one time I ran a campaign in Wisconsin, I was living in the guest house on the candidate's property. There was one point, his cousin was the scheduler and I was the campaign manager. And we heard him walking across the property and up the stairs because he had sent us an email at like 1 o'clock in the morning that we did not respond to. And both she and I were like, shh, quick.
So you've been
and he walked up and he's like, oh, they're sleeping. I'll have to go back.
So you've been a campaign manager too before you were a lobbyist?
Oh, so that is what I think made me feel the most confident about living in a van, was when I managed that campaign. It was a client that we had through this was in the 2018 cycle. It was a client that we had through the campaign consulting firm that I had moved out to Kansas City to work for that cycle. Mm-hmm. And to your point, the other dude in the office that had been assigned this campaign to be an associate for was just phoning it in. He was like, this race isn't important enough to me. I don't want to do it. This guy is now a chief of staff to a member of Congress because he basically weaponized his own incompetence so that he could pick an easier campaign to work on in like an R+30 district. Uh-huh. And I'm in Wisconsin, which is purple AF.
Yes.
Which is what I like. I like coming to the middle. Yes. I like having conversations.
Nothing wrong with being in the middle.
Yes, I agree. especially in the federal government. You got to get to the middle and let everyone else in the state figure out what's best for them, because California and Georgia very different.
Not the same, and so many people refuse to even come to the middle at all.
Yeah.
And you have the people on the far right, and you have the people on the far left, and they just cannot.
Right.
It's like we could see eye to eye if we talk about it in this format. If we talk about it, we'll eventually agree on stuff.
Yeah.
But they don't want to talk to each other.
No. Well, and for that campaign, the Wisconsin primary is so late. It's like mid-August. So he didn't win the primary. Mm-hmm. And so I came back. Well, all that to say, so I'm a campaign manager for this race. I am the only person on staff at that point. Because it was one of those, like, I was flying to Milwaukee every week. And then for that summer, they're like, just go live in Milwaukee for the summer. It would be easier to manage from there. You'll be his campaign manager, whatever. I was the only person older than 25 on the campaign. So I ended up also, on top of managing it, driving the campaign RV that we had rented for the campaign stops that he was making. Of the 72 counties in Wisconsin, I drove this Class C 30-foot motorhome with his face and his family's face plastered on it.
Fun. I've done that before. It's not fun.
I made it to 50 of those 72 counties.
That is insane.
It was truly insane. And then when the primary happened and he lost, all these other races were like fully fleshed out. I didn't really respect or care about any of the other candidates that this campaign consulting firm had elected to work with that cycle. But there was a citywide ballot initiative in San Diego, and it was called Measure E, Soccer City for San Diego. And it was a bunch of San Diego locals, business guys who were collectively coming together to buy the land where the old Chargers Stadium used to be in Mission Valley. They were going to buy it at market value and redevelop it into this mixed-use space that would include a Major League Soccer stadium that after a certain amount of time would then be San Diego State's, be under San Diego State's purview, because they were still going to use it for football. It failed so miserably, and I was so bummed because it would have been so amazing. Obviously, they found their path to MLS years later anyway. Right. But I remember thinking, like, oh.
That area always turns down votes because it's for public funding, right?
So, no.
That's why the Chargers left in the first place.
That was where my issue was they were, not only was it going to be completely privately funded, but unlike San Diego State, who had offered a competing bid, this investor group was willing to pay fair market freaking value. And the argument was, if you let San Diego State have it at a cheaper rate, not only is the city not making money, but whatever they generate goes back to the state, not the city, because they are a state school.
The city kind of blocked it. And
I don't know what happened. All I know is I roll in at the end of August. Okay. I drove my own car from Kansas City to San Diego because my brain had broken. My mental health was in such an awful state with all of this. It was so much.
What year was this?
2018.
2018, okay.
I get out there, and they're in this campaign office, and Landon Donovan is their spokesperson who shows up every day and is in the office hanging out. And I'm sitting there, to my point about athletes and their personalities. I would say it was the perfect embodiment of never meet your heroes. He was so annoying, and I told him that to his face. He's the most annoying person I've ever met. And I had to sit down and explain to him, and I'm like the grassroots organizer here. So I'm the field director. Any person who knocked on doors, made calls, showed up to any of the events I managed. And that was probably like a 250 person team. But part of that meant I would have to sit and explain to Landon, like, you can't just knock on every door in San Diego. That's not how that works. Right. We have all of this data that this campaign specifically hired our consulting firm for, so that you know where the high propensity voters are. Do you know what high propensity means? You don't? Okay, high propensity. Like, I was like, you don't understand how any of this works. And no one really cares. You're not charismatic enough to get anyone excited about this. And not only that, but you guys did an awful job of marketing it in the first place because it was so much more than soccer. But you made this entire city think
about soccer.
Yeah, you made this entire city think that they were going to have to fund someone's idea to bring another sports team here when you just watched a sports team leave. And an even bigger league. A sport from an even bigger league.
Wow. So this, okay, and then you became a lobbyist after?
Right after
all
that.
Of that?
Yeah.
Which did you prefer? The lobbyist part or the consulting and the...
I actually preferred campaigns. Objectively, between campaigns and lobbying, I preferred campaigns because there's a very cut and dry set of goals and metrics whereby success is measured. Lobbying was difficult because I was lobbying for one of the largest privately held companies in the country. They got their start in oil and gas and have just stretched out. Their fingers are and hands are in everything.
Right.
And because of that, the members that aligned with free market principles were never not going to take our calls. We never really had an issue with building those relationships because we had the leverage and the reputation. And what I realized in lobbying, campaigns, it was easy to work behind the scenes because the candidate is the one who has to have the personality. The candidate is the one who's shaking hands and having conversations. Mm-hmm. I was doing the strategic, logistical work, and then I was also managing a team of people that I could have intimate relationships with. When I started lobbying, not only was it every day so evident to me that it was a boys' club, but because I was in this space where I had to build a ton of shallow relationships and constantly participating in small talk and constantly going to happy hours and I don't drink and constantly going to dinners where I had to be on all the time. Mm-hmm. I hated the socialization or social part of it. And I also realized that I am not personally passionate about oil and gas.
Right.
So it reached a point where, separate of how I felt with my own politics and my own morals, I was like, there isn't one more TPC course that I'm going to play on that is going to make me like this all of a sudden. The only thing that was keeping me with it was golf. Truly. I did not like it. I didn't enjoy the conversations at all. I didn't enjoy how I felt from 2016 onward, I felt like I was in this safe space of kind of running adjacent and parallel to an administration that had no experience in what they were doing. We're so unconventional. And I am at the very heart a constitutionalist. Nothing in the first or second Trump administration has been respectful of the Constitution at all. And I had spent my entire college years in the beginning of my career predicating all of my actions on my personal belief of the Constitution and my understanding that all the people I was working with felt the same way.
Right.
They do not. Whatever the Republican Party is going through right now is a huge separation. It is a fight between a very, very far right.
It's like an identity crisis, right?
Huge identity crisis.
Right.
And it was at that point where I was watching so many people who I had worked hard to build relationships with and admire and respect just completely do a 180. And were very complicit in a lot of the things that I was like, I don't abide by any of that, actually. Mm-hmm. And it's not even most people who engage with politics have a very, very, very surface level understanding. Mine is a
inner workings. You see
and they're not good people. It's just like celebrities. I'm going to go watch.
Don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
You said that.
I'm going to go watch a movie that I enjoy with actors who are really great at acting. But that doesn't change the fact that some of them have allegations or a history or a reputation for participating in behavior that I would never allow my husband, my sister, my
Right.
parent to engage in. And when I had to go to work and see that every single day, the part where it like truly broke for me and where I was finally taking a step out of the subconscious to the conscious was when it took Kevin McCarthy 16 freaking rounds to be voted in as speaker. And I sat there and thought, this dude, I don't consider him particularly intelligent
Right.
personally,
Right.
having met him personally.
Right.
And that is separate of the fact that he has had a reputation for stepping out on his partner with other members of Congress and has had a reputation for stepping out on his partner with interns and staff. Why do I, if I think, oh, I'm fine, I'm in this space where the company that I'm working for does not support the administration, I feel okay. I'm not complicit. I am complicit if I'm still
you
having to
know
meet with
it,
that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that, to me, it was at that point where I'm like, there is nothing about this job and nothing about this career that is going to make me happier or a better person. And I am already fighting for my life with my own mental health. This is not helping. I'm going to cut it out. I don't care about the like job security. I don't care about the healthcare. I don't care about the sunk cost of it all. I need out. My brain, my body, I was out of shape. I was forgetful. I was tired. I was sad. I was mean to everyone around me. I was just the person that I was having to show up in that capacity was a total loser.
Did it end up being like you felt? I don't know if fake is the word.
Yeah.
But it is because you're kind of like trying to put on a show, and it's like I don't want to.
Yeah, actually, like,
do this. I
oh,
don't
Congressman
wanna be-
so and so, you almost had a birdie.
Exactly. So like, when you were talking about working on campaigns, you know what success is. What's success for a lobbyist?
So that was, yeah, and again, in the most objective way, that was also a really hard thing for me because I thought no one's not taking our calls. When this budget bill gets passed, we aren't the only people calling with our particular concerns. We are not the only massive company who could change the economy in reaction to what's happening. So if I were, a lot of what I was doing for some of these newer members of Congress that were coming in were saying, hey, this is kind of how this is kind of how we engage with you. This is the relationship we'd like to build with you. And here are all the things that we care about and all of the work that we do to stay up to date on how decisions made in Congress affect our respective companies.
That you're working for.
And again, it wasn't just oil and natural gas. It was like freaking paper products, cybersecurity, tech. They were venturing into other forms of energy, like commodities, real estate, just everything. A true conglomerate.
And you work for the companies.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you are private employees, obviously.
Yeah. So they had like 55,000 employees in the U.S. and are different from a lot of these other massive companies like Amazon because Amazon is publicly traded. So there's a whole other conversation about the private versus public priorities there because nothing we ever did was beholden to a shareholder or like a public-facing board. So it was nice in that way because I think we were truly able to just have a conversation about, okay, well, tariffs are a great example to use. If you impose tariffs on your BFFs Canada, by the way, where we get a lot of the lumber that we can't produce here, this is how it's going to affect our ability to build all of these homes in a lot of these suburban areas that you've driven people to.
Right.
In your inability to react appropriately to the pandemic. But
how many people want to get out? How many people are addicted to it and love that?
Lots of people are addicted to it, I think.
Because of it, is it the relation to power?
Proximity to power is huge.
Money.
Big fish in a small pond is huge. Money, kind of, but not the kind of money that bigger industries are working with.
Are the lobbyists? Some people will say lobbyists are more powerful than the actual congressman and.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because half these congressmen are coming from very rural areas, experiencing their very first six-figure paycheck.
It's true.
And they are assuming this infrastructure built by the members that have come before them. And so when you assume office, they're like, well, you have to talk to so-and-so's family because they own XYZ and they do XYZ, and they're the ones that have connections to the following people that will fundraise the most for you, or they're the people that, like kingmakers, I guess, they're the people in your district that are going to get the wheels moving more than anyone else. So those are the people you want to have a relationship with. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, you're dutifully listening because you're just some rando who liked to hear himself talk and decided to run for Congress, and you're lucky enough to be in an R plus whatever or D plus whatever district. So you didn't really have any competition after you made it out of the primary. So you just want to do what's asked of you, do what's being told, and you're also trying to be respectful of the demographic of your district. So you angle for the committees that you want to get on, and then you fall in line to whatever leadership tells you. I mean, the perfect example, Nancy Pelosi specifically had someone during the very first State of the Union that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez attended. Uh-huh. Huge deal for her to have knocked off the incumbent in that race.
Yeah, in New York, yeah.
So she had someone sit next to her for that first State of the Union to, like, as a little handler to say, like, this is when you stand up, this is when you clap, you don't clap for that, you don't clap for this. And part of it was just like, welcome to Congress. This is kind of how we act. We want to make sure that we're all collectively acting in agreement.
We keep her in line because we're threatened by her.
Yes, but that was also it. And I don't think that was like a news story or anything, but the buzz around DC was like, everyone's super excited outside of DC that she's here, but the people inside of DC are annoyed.
Not happy because she's become the face overnight of that party and whatnot.
Well, and she wants people like Nancy Pelosi to be banned from what everyone would consider insider trading, to own or to sell or buy stocks as a sitting member of Congress.
I mean, God.
But it's the same exact way. The issue with the Republican Party now is you've got someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene who toes the perfect little line and meets with the right people and has the right conversations, and then gets into Congress and then realizes that it's more valuable to her to talk to Fox News and to talk to the people than it is to govern and represent her district. And she immediately, based on her behavior, was stripped of her committee assignments in her very first term. What do you do if you're stripped of your committee assignments? You show up to vote.
Exactly. You show up to vote.
And you sit around.
They should be back in their own. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? They go back. I feel they should spend most of their time at home, in their own districts, and working with the people that actually voted for them, rather than, okay, well, they live in DC now full time, and we haven't seen them in months and years and what.
Yeah, I would say the House members go back far more frequently. The Senate, I feel like the Senate not so much, because they only get reelected every 6 years, right. So they don't have to do the posturing, the endless cycle of posturing to make sure that they're reelected. But I think where it would be really helpful for the country collectively is to hold them accountable more for being good at the basic capabilities that a congressional office is supposed to do. All of the casework that's done for things like your passport, the kind of help that you need in order to get things from a specific agency you need. For like Veterans Affairs, if someone's having an issue with their benefits, there should be a caseworker that should be on that helping you in that office. Right. And part of, I wouldn't say it's someone like a congressperson's job to sit there and do that sort of casework themselves, but if they are dealing with those sort of, recognizing that their district is dealing with those sort of issues in a significant way, spend time advocating for that process to become easier, or spend time figuring out why that process is the way that it is, or give your team the appropriate resources to be able to finish that casework in a timely manner, as opposed to maxing out your chief of staff's salary or spending all your money on your congressional budget, like your office budget money, on a comms person and a press secretary so that they can get all of your talking points generated for your daily news hits. Like, spend less time doing that and more time doing the representative part and the actual work that people are supposed to contact a congressional office for.
Okay. Multiple times through this, you've talked about mental health.
Oh, yes.
How much has your mental health improved since the day that you left that space and said, I am going to live out of a van?
It's improved tenfold, I would say. Yeah.
That's why I asked that question.
I was very anxious last year about money because I jumped into this without really a financial plan on how long I could be unemployed for.
Right.
But I think when you reach a point where life doesn't really feel like it's worth living, you don't think ahead for those sort of things. And so last year was tough because I did spend quite a bit of time desperately finding remote admin jobs where I could just leverage the basic skills, book a flight, book a meeting, whatever, super easy. But I did, once I kind of got my bearings, I recognized like, oh, that's actually it's getting in the way of my ability to try the creative side. And what I always liked about the soccer content, because I've done it for even years before I started living in a van, was doing it as a creative outlet.
Right.
I liked the creativity. I am an avid hobbyist. Like, I double majored in international relations and French with a minor in classical music, classical piano. Soccer was not the only sport I played growing up. I love being curious. I love learning. I love doing anything and trying anything. And the soccer content allowed me to do that. And so when I realized last fall, I'm doing the same exact thing. I'm doing a 9-to-5 just in a van with less resources to be good at a 9-to-5. This is such a waste. I thought, you know what? Maybe try being poor. Try being poor. So many people in this country are doing it. When I'm living in a van doing stealth and urban camping, I see it everywhere. I see people scraping to get by, and they are surviving. How about I just try surviving? And I can find joy in the creative side. And if I earnestly put my time, energy, and resources into doing a good job in the job that I would expect myself to do, something's going to happen. Whether that be like the world ends, I give up, I'm successful at it, whatever is meant to happen is going to happen, but how about give it an earnest try? So that's when about a month ago now, I put in a notice and was like, I don't want to do this job anymore. And by the way, the job I was doing, they knew I was remote. They had no idea I live in a van. Mostly because it really wasn't their business. It wasn't impeding my ability to do work for them.
Right.
The only thing that was being impeded was like my ability to create and engage.
Right.
I don't want to use the word content because I feel like it almost demeans it. But I also don't want to use the word art because I don't feel like it's art. It kind of is though. It's performance art. In a way.
I think in a way everything is art.
Yeah.
Everything is art to somebody. and if it's art to you, it's art to you, right? I think this podcast could be art. It's art to me.
I was gonna say, if you say it, I'll go with it. That's I don't want to say it and sound silly. If you feel that, I feel it too. It is art.
I think soccer is art.
Soccer is so beautiful.
It can be, yeah. What I hate about soccer is that people are taking out the beauty.
Oh yeah, pisses me off. And that's when I first started creating content. It was because I was playing. The Ways and Means Committee had its own softball league, and then it spawned its own little softball team, and then it spawned its own little soccer team. So I was playing with a bunch of congressional house staff, and they're the kind of dudes that call Alex Morgan wifey, and we're so excited for the World Cup, and then would be like, well, who's your Premier League team? And then I would say,
dumbest question in the history of soccer.
Well, and I would say freaking Manchester United, because I, like every prepubescent girl, thought that he was cute, and also that was the only team that they would ever show. Yeah, of course.
Or Ronaldo?
No, Wayne Rooney. That hot shot, hot piece of tail.
I did love that team. That team was amazing because Sir Alex
Iconic, which I just noticed over there, or I noticed earlier.
Ferguson, for sure.
But when you say that, people are like, "Oh, I don't know if I could be friends with it," and you're like,
"Shut up!
You're from Nebraska.
You've never been to England.
You picked Liverpool for what? What?
Exactly. Oh my God." The worst are Arsenal fans from that have
I've never met an Arsenal fan I liked, by the way. I'm sorry.
I mean, I have some friends that are Arsenal fans, but I don't.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, we gotta stop. But oh my God.
Well, yeah. So I would be hanging out with those guys, and they loved American soccer. They loved U.S. soccer. Loved the World Cup. But I had graduated from a women's college. I didn't have a college football affiliation.
Right.
I didn't grow up watching the NFL because it was played on a lot of them on Sundays, games. And I liked baseball, but when I was picking a sport to play into high school and into college, I had pared down to soccer because of the adrenaline from that was more interesting to me. I could have played. I could have been a better softball player in college. I could have been a better golfer in college. I picked soccer because
golfing.
Oh, forever. My dad put me in lessons when I was really young.
I wish I had golfing.
I know. Another thing I miss, again, going to all those golf fundraisers, I was always closest to the pin and always farthest drive for women because they separated it by gender. So I'm just racking in all these like $200 gift card to the clubhouse or like or the shop, or it was so amazing. Anyway, but yeah, so I had gotten these super cheap DC United season tickets for when they were playing at RFK, and I got two because I was like, I might want to invite somebody, and so I started inviting friends, but they were like, oh no, yeah, whatever, and I thought, no. The Seattle Sounders with Clint Dempsey are coming to town this weekend. And you're telling me you're a diehard USMNT fan, but you have no idea that that's going on?
Right.
So I started writing as a joke these like policy briefs. I would send them via email to say like, well, for when you come to the game with me this weekend, like these are the things that you need to know to make you have a better time, to enjoy it. And then I started making some videos, and then I started traveling, and and there was really no plan with any of that ever. It was just this is me going to enjoy. And then I tried to make like something more legitimate out of it and do interviews and conversations and try to make it more official. And that helped me to get like press credentials or free tickets to games. Currently, that's the biggest way in which I've been paid, is just free access. I filmed a music video at the Map-Free Stadium in Columbus.
Okay.
Using Southwest's 2 free check bag policy, I checked my keyboard, and I had arranged my own super sappy ballad to the tune of We Love Ya, that U.S. chant, and got some local videographer to film me playing in the middle of the field and like slowly walking down the concourse and all that stuff because I thought it would be funny. I tried to make it so earnest and so serious because I just wanted it to be like dramatic. But it's just it's a creative pursuit. That's art.
Absolutely, yeah.
All of this is performance art because, by the way, I do firmly believe, even though I want to be authentic in the space that I show up in, who I am on the internet is not a comprehensive picture of who I am in real life. And I do like to keep them separate. So in a way, it kind of is performance art.
Yeah.
But it's not intentional presentation of something other than I am. It is just a piece of who I am. And the beauty of me being on the road is that if you get to meet me in person, you get to see all of it.
Right. Okay. A year from now, a year and 6 months from now, when this is all over and the World Cup is past and you've gone to all of the World Cup games.
Impossible. This country's too big. And 3 freaking countries are hosting. That's
true.
Insane. Oh, wait. I'm assuming I would do it in the van. I could fly. Planes will cease to exist. Done what?
Leave the van and let's say you had to go home for something.
Yeah, I did it for Copa America.
Okay.
I did it for Copa America, and I left my van
Left your van at the airport and then flew.
You'll actually never guess where I left it. I did not leave it at the airport. The Oakland Roots USL Championship team let me leave it at their training facility, and their training facility is the old Oakland Raiders training facility that is right next to the airport.
Oh, so then you didn't have to pay for parking?
I didn't have to pay for parking until I showed up because my flight was delayed getting back. I showed up at 11 o'clock at night, and I called their comms guy and was like, what's the code to get into the gate? And he didn't respond, and I was like, okay. So I climbed the fence, and I'm sitting there having a panic attack going, I'm climbing a fence that is technically attached to the Oakland airport. If I get caught,
it's jail.
This is a federal offense. I was like, just like climbed over, and I'm very scared of the dark, so I left all my stuff at the front gate, and I climbed over, and I am sprinting. I'm booking it to the other end of the van. I get in the van, and everything's tumbling because I'm just driving as fast as I can, and of course I like get to the edge, and gate opens. I'm like, oh, thank God. But then I thought, you know what? The worst case scenario would be I would have just slept there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I've slept a lot of places that I don't think you could technically sleep in. It is. I've only stayed at one campground, but it's all stealth and urban camping. So,
where are you staying here in Buffalo?
Wouldn't you like to know? No, I'm just kidding. I was about to say, wouldn't you like to know Weather Boy? Do you remember that video? That little kid's at the fair, and the local news anchor is like asking him about his time there, and he asks him a question. He goes, "Wouldn't you like to know Weather Boy?"
Vaguely.
Anyway, that's.
Do you do mostly Airbnbs, or do you stay in your van?
I'm in my van the whole time.
You're in your van the whole time?
When I was in Louisville the other day, I did stay at a hotel for 2 nights so that I could finish sewing my curtains. I needed to finish them for an interview I was doing. Bought an old sewing machine off Facebook Marketplace because my nice fancy machine is at home. Picked that up, went to the hotel, and I sewed through the night. I was sewing all night. I put on that show Righteous Gemstones, caught up on the second season.
Yeah.
Love it so much.
I'm on season 3 or 4. I haven't started 4 yet.
4 is the new one. I had to rewatch 2 and 3 just to catch up. But so the goal is for it to be in a residential-ish area.
Okay.
So usually I'll stay in a city center that's residential but still has public parking. It's one of those things where it's you live in the house or the apartment and you could walk a block to your favorite coffee shop.
Yeah.
Whatever parking kind of exists between those 2 spaces is usually public and no one's batting an eye.
Yeah. No one cares.
That video that we were talking about with FC Cincinnati, I woke up in a park, Goodale Park in Columbus, which is very close to downtown, very close to where the team stays. And I was in the middle. The whole reason I filmed and the whole reason why my face looks so like, what? Is because I had booked a class through ClassPass. It's an app that a bunch of different gym studios can,
Oh, okay.
like, you can use credits toward a gym that you've never been to before.
Yep.
So it gives me a break from, I call Planet Fitness Purple Mecca. It gives me a break from Purple Mecca because sometimes Planet Fitness is like, it's too much. So I had signed up for this hot yoga class, and I was in the middle of like changing out of the PJs, getting ready to go. And I had my curtains up, but I had my windows cracked. And I start hearing a bunch of dudes talking. And I was like, wait, what? I love eavesdropping when people walk by the van. But I was like, wait. And then I look out the back window, and I don't have my curtains up yet on the back. And it's very tinted, but it feels weird because it feels like people can see in, but they can't.
Right,
but you can see everything.
Right.
So it's mentally, it's just odd when you're in the middle of getting ready and someone's walking by and like, oh, cool, look at that car. And you're like, don't look at me. But they can't see you because it's so tinted. But I like peer out the back. I'm like, wait a second. That looks, and I couldn't tell because FC Cincinnati is playing Saturday night. FC Cincinnati 2, the next pro team, are playing the next day. So I'm like sizing up these dudes going like, yeah, soccer players are small, but like, are they next pro? Is that like next pro small? I can't tell.
Right.
And then I see at the tail end, Kai Kamara is walking behind them, and he had just signed to the team. And that's when I like got on my phone. I was like, wait, what? So yeah. But that's exactly how most of my mornings go. I hear and see people walking their dogs, walking to work. But it's beautiful because I'm right in the middle of exactly where I need to be.
Right.
A couple of teams have let me like just stay in the parking lot after games, so I don't have to deal with traffic. I'll just go out there and like make a little snack, brush my teeth, wash my makeup off, get in my PJs, hang out.
What's the diet like?
I eat so much tinned fish. Eat so much tinned fish. So I would say my diet is a lot of...
Are we talking like anchovies?
Sometimes anchovies, yeah.
Okay.
When I was in Vancouver last year, I went to a farmer's market, and there was a guy at a stand selling wild-caught salmon and wild-caught tuna. Mm-hmm. And I had gotten a couple cans, and I thought, these I could bring over the border. Totally fine. And I ended up eating, they were preserved in olive oil, and it tasted so freaking good. And I put them on like a rice cake with avocados, everything but the bagel seasoning and the slices of cheese. Because I have a baby fridge in there, but I don't really have very much. So it's perfect for leftovers that I can eat the next morning. Or there's a lot of things that really do not need to be refrigerated. If you buy farm fresh eggs and they haven't previously been in the fridge, you don't need to refrigerate them. So, learning a lot about that. But I loved that tuna so much that when I got home to my parents' place, I was like, I should just order a bunch of cans.
Order a bunch and then just travel.
Yeah, so I did. But on my journey for the first couple of weeks when I was going, I started down in Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and then to Kentucky. I stopped at my brother and his wife's place in Atlanta and my aunt and uncle's place in Raleigh, and then my brother's best friend, who has become my friend, he and his wife's place. All three places that I stopped as I was showing them the van and said, yeah, and like, this is my diet, because they asked. I said I'm on a big tinned fish kick. Little did I know, tinned fish is having a like renaissance right now. There's a company called Fishwife that I guess was on Shark Tank, and they've got really, really great marketing and packaging. And so I ended up bartering with my brother, and he gave me some tinned fish. And then I went to my buddy Will's, my brother's BFF, Will and Alicia's, and they gave me tinned fish, and I traded mine. And then I go to Aunt Cindy and Uncle Greg's, and I was like, it's so crazy. I started with this very specific Pacific Northwest fish, tinned tuna, and look what I have now. And I have this, and I have this. And they're like, oh, we get some from Aldi that we just love. We'll trade you. 3 separate times I traded tinned fish. I now have so much, and I'll go, this is the one thing that I really like splurge on. I'll go into these gourmet markets that have, right now in the van, I've got some tinned oysters, which sounds disgusting, but I'm going to pop the camera open and turn it on for that one.
Did you go to Wegmans yet?
I haven't gone to Wegmans in a while.
Yeah.
Do they have a good tinned fish selection?
I have no idea.
I'm about to find out.
There's one right around the corner.
Tons of nuts and seeds, tons of fresh fruit. Every meal is basically a snack unless I'm going somewhere that's specifically recommended. One of my goals for content is that when I go to a new place, I just finished and need to post the one I did in Louisville because it was the first successful one I did. I got a player from Lou City who had been on the team for, however long they've been around.
Right.
In the video, he'll say, "Hey, Cheyenne, welcome to Louisville. While you're here are a couple places that I like to go eat, like to go hang out. Hope you have a good time." And then the video is me saying, like, "Thanks, Sean." Then I go to the burger place he recommended.
Yeah.
And then I go to the street of shops that he recommended. And then I'll go and, like, try what he said I should try. And then that's my meal.
Have you ever thought about doing this in another country? Not Canada, not Mexico. Like, have you ever thought about doing this, but in Europe?
I would do it in Japan.
Oh my God! I have been on to Japan.
Oh, I thought you were gonna get up.
Craze. No, I have been on to Japan. Like, I've been obsessed with Japan lately. Actually, one of the girls that played for FC Buffalo, Linda Olmark, she plays at University of North Carolina. She spent some years over in Japan because her dad, I believe, was a Marine. Don't quote me on that. But and she developed in Japan, soccer-wise.
Oh, how does that affect her play?
That's why she's so good.
Yeah, she's probably so technical.
Exactly.
Okay, here's the thing that pisses me off. A couple things. One, I studied abroad in Hiroshima. Love it. And the growth of the J League, I could traipse around that country for years and have a heck of a time with that. I could do the exact same thing. Europe, maybe, but definitely not Western Europe. Western Europeans are so pretentious about soccer. And I'm like, we get it. You got blue collar roots. Your dad's dad busted his kneecap at the factory and then somehow it healed to play football the next day. Congratulations. That's all fine. But they get so pretentious about, like, it being rooted in history.
Right.
Not everyone has that luxury. Some of us colonized later in life. Okay. Like, that's how I feel. But I feel like I could do it in Japan. And I love my favorite games for the group stage of the World Cup in 2022 were Japan's. I went to almost all of their group stage games. I loved how they played. I loved their coach. And I remember specifically going and looking, men's side obviously, but I remember going and looking for information on their technical ability, their history, whatever. All the stuff that people write articles about in droves about any other team.
Right.
The only freaking articles I could find were about how their fans picked up trash at the end of the game.
Absolutely.
It pissed me off because I thought, yes, that is interesting.
Yeah.
That signifies a culture far better than ours because people litter here at stadiums all the time and expect others to pick up for them. I hate it. But it's also super dismissive of an entire federation. I want to know about how it is they beat Germany, how it is that they advanced to their group stage playing the way that they did. They were phenomenal.
It's their culture. It's the culture and how they approach practice. That's how it is, and their technique and I'm actually trying to get her on to the podcast because I've heard a secondhand story about a coach when they were doing a dribbling drill, and if they like messed up, they'd step on their foot. The coach would go and like step on the kid's foot, and like, cause there's books like what is it, Tiger Mother?
Oh yeah,
something like that. That's probably at home. And what time?
Oh, it's 2:30. Oh my gosh! Yeah. Remember when I was like, I could do 30 minutes? Keep going. I don't have anywhere to be.
I'm sorry.
Well, I thought, maybe I might do a little bit of something in Buffalo, but I'm exhausted.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But her story, secondhand, is something along those lines of They are very strict of what you can and can't get away with. They're very vocal on when you make a mistake, and it's their technical culture. And because how many of them play instruments, and I'm fascinated by that entire culture. My dad's been there a bunch of times. He works automotive, and I was just having this conversation like yesterday with one of our players about Japan and how I've been, for some reason, my algorithm is all about the cherry
blossoms?
Yeah, the cherry blossoms, but not the ones in Washington, D.C. It's the ones in Japan.
Yeah.
And for
Japan is having a moment among people my age right now. A lot of people have gone to visit. It's experienced a big spike in tourism, which is really nice for them and their economy. I've also noticed ever since 2022, it is very clear to me that people are on the men's and women's side starting to scout from Japan, because I've seen a huge uptick in Japanese players in both MLS and NWSL.
Yep.
And Korean, Asian in general, I would say.
Colleges too.
Yeah.
Florida State has always had an Asian influence, especially Japanese.
Really?
Yeah. So.
And that, to me, I'm like, well, I have a Japanese vehicle. It would be cool to bring that element. And then I think, well, the only connection I have to Japan, besides studying there once 13 years ago, is a Japanese vehicle. And what is that, really?
Yeah.
My best friend from college lives there, though, with her husband.
Okay.
And I will be going out to see them.
What
I'll be going out to see them at some point.
What do you think is next after all of this? Or do you think you could do this forever?
The van or content?
The van. The content you could do forever.
I could see myself living in the van for... I've given myself the deadline of end of next year to reevaluate.
Okay. Do you think that you could go back into DC and all that world?
No, heavens no.
No way.
No, not at all. Literally never. I would like to be civically engaged.
But live somewhere?
I'd like to run for the mayor of a town I create. I'm the only one in the population. You're like, you'd like to vote? Okay.
What do you mean, civically? Okay.
No, I think one thing about soccer and politics that has always intersected for me is I feel very strongly about public-private partnerships for stadiums. I think it's insane how much a local or state government is willing to fork over to dudes who should be able to pay for those things themselves. Mm-hmm. I think we have a false understanding of how much money sports generate in a collective economy, and it's already been proven. Chicago bowed out of a World Cup bid for this reason. They're like, this doesn't make us money.
Right.
And I fear next year for all these people coming in, for the way that law enforcement is going to handle a bunch of foreign people.
Yeah.
I worry about it very much. So I think I really value local government. I really value... That's the other thing, too, is as a content consumer, not the end goal, but the next step for someone when they reach a level of virality or notoriety is to move to the coast. And I've always joked to myself that I am a coastal elite because I've always grown up at least 2 or 3 hours from... or at the very most 2-3 hours from the beach. But traveling for soccer has made me, and honestly traveling doing like grassroots campaigning has made me such a huge apologist for the middle of the country and an appreciator for the middle of the country. And I don't think it would be authentic to me to find the kind of success that would lead me to moving to LA or to lead me to moving to wherever it is that we decide. Well, I would move to Atlanta. I mean,
yeah,
I've got some family there. It's interesting to me that U.S. soccer is moving there.
It is to me too, especially when Kansas City is so central and so easy to fly to. It's like, why didn't you just keep everything in Kansas City?
Atlanta is the world's busiest airport.
Exactly.
And the land there is ripe for the picking. I mean, they were already bending over backwards, giving Hollywood tax breaks to film in Atlanta.
Yep.
That kind of phase, I guess, for them is a little bit on the outs.
Michigan had something like that too for the longest time.
Sorry.
No, it's the chairs. Yeah, I guess Michigan's bringing that back.
Oh, good for them.
The movie industry and whatnot. But
Michigan is beautiful.
I love it. I love it. And I go home every few months. Because there's always a birthday. See, this is what...
Someone's always living life.
There's something. And that's why I've enjoyed this type of company versus a club environment. Because I miss so many birthdays. I miss so many graduations. I miss Mother's Days, Father's Days, births of my nephews. And it's like, now I miss less now owning this versus what I used to miss with club, and that's why I've done this. But how random is this?
Random.
How many podcasts have you just randomly been asked on through your journey? This can't be your first one.
How many have I asked and accepted? Only one other pod, but I kind of knew who he was before.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was random. Even when I was driving out here, I was like, 30-minute drive? Seriously?
Yeah. Oh, my God.
I don't even know this guy.
Buffalo.
Yeah, it truly is middle of Buffalo.
He hates soccer.
I'll say this. I didn't look into any of your stuff. I weirdly had like an intuition about it.
Love it.
I will say when people are like, do you feel safe? How is it traveling alone? Like all this stuff. I think there's a toxic chivalry sometimes in those questions.
Are you okay to do this by yourself?
Yeah. Or one time there was a friend of mine last year. I did stay in an Airbnb last year because it was an Airbnb that a friend of mine had rented to do some filming separate for his filming company. Mm-hmm. And he said, we don't need it for the whole week. You're welcome to it for the couple days at the end of it. And I said, yes, because I would love a Wi-Fi connection and good lighting. Mm-hmm. And both of those things clearly are provided if you used it to film. And I remember I went to a game for Real Salt Lake and a midweek game and had come home really, really late and the back door was open. And I went to text him, but I saw a text from him that said, hey, the owners said that there was something going on with the sprinkler system in the back and they stopped by and fixed it while you're at the game. Like, I hope that's fine. And I was like, oh, that actually, I feel great because...
Looked like somebody broke it?
It looked, well, my thought was I thought I'd left it open. And I'm not super worried given the neighborhood and also given the fact that there were plenty of cameras around. Yeah. But I said something like, oh, the back door is open. I thought it was me. Good to know. And I get this barrage of texts, and then I get a call. There was something like, do you need me to stay there? Do you feel safe? Blah, blah. I'm sorry, I should have left some sort of protection with you. And I thought, do you think I'm the kind of woman that fears for that? Every single neighborhood I go to, Zillow.com is up. I am cosplaying being a resident in every single city I go to. Right. Every single time I get somewhere, like, this is cute, I could live here. This is cute, I could live here. The houses in this area, the only crime being committed here is white collar and being committed by people who know each other. Yeah. Statistically, stranger danger is not what I, as a single woman, should be worried about. And now that you're offering to come over, I feel unsafe. I want you to think about that. It's 1:00. I am not asking you to come over. You are insisting that you wish you had been a better protector. And I have given you no indication about whether I feel unsafe. I just told you, I thought I left the back door open. Let's think about that.
Do you ever worry about your van,
though? When I was in Cincinnati the other day, someone sent a picture of me to my like DM'd me, and it was in my message requests and said, I saw you at the such and such parking lot. And I was like, oh. Yeah, I don't like that.
I was going to ask that earlier. It's like, do you get recognized at games? And like,
I got recognized in Qatar. Isn't that wild? And I had
It is
4,000 Instagram followers at that point. I've been so tiny. You've been growing so fast. That kind of growth, maybe I would love to
It was
experience,
insane. But it's controversial topics that usually like set it off. My first one after I started this whole thing, it was about a girl who played ECNL RL. Yep, it's a B team, most B teams, and she's playing Division I at Mercyhurst, right? And she talked about how if she could relive her youth soccer career,
she'd murder her coach.
I
might.
She'd have, in hindsight, that she would enjoy it more, knowing that ECNL is not the only way to play Division I soccer. That one has 423,000 views, 4,000 likes. Let's see how many followers that gained me.
Holy mackerel.
1,500 follows from one post since January 18th. Isn't that nuts? But then there's some topics that won't do as well.
Sure.
It has some, but and then there's something that I said that pisses some coach off in Cincinnati.
Sure. Actually, why don't we say something non-controversial that might piss someone off? Stop taking out your own issues in your life on young women. If you are going through a divorce with a woman who you did not be a good, you were not a good partner to,
yeah.
Don't take that on the other women in your life.
Right. And
that's how I feel.
I've been watching a lot of videos like that of like, if somebody is taking time out of their day to attack somebody on social media, that's a them problem.
Oh yeah.
They're dealing with something at home or something in their own life that feels like, I'm gonna talk badly about that person. But then if you ever did meet them in person, they would be so nice, they'd be so cordial for the most part,
The worst thing that's ever happened to me after that bullying incident was that I met someone who I know had participated in it, and he just couldn't make eye contact with me. And I was like, oh, this guy's limp.
Why don't you just say, what?
Oh no, I put out my hand. I put out my hand to his friend and to him, and he was just like, that's it.
Did he know that you knew that?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. That's the thing is, to engage on the internet that way, people who are comfortable in who they are and willing to confront and be confronted about things that are important to them are not going to stop at the internet. If it is that important to them, they will continue to do it in person, whether that be in a good or bad way. If they are confident in what they're saying, they'll take it out of the internet. But if you are 6 months after the fact recognizing that your frustration was simply you found an avenue for it and you felt good in the dog pile, you're not going to continue doing that after the fact, because I think he knew in his heart of hearts, like, oh, my behavior was actually embarrassing.
And that's why, and then he is embarrassed.
Well, and what I recognize that there's a lot I've been complicit in. That I could talk about for thousands and thousands of hours. But I think if we want soccer to grow, we need to recognize that not everyone exists in the progressive space that they do. And I was so tired at that point of being bullied. I don't really do anything with the Columbus Crew supporters section because of how they have treated me in the past over this. And they are fully entitled to how they feel, and there's a lot of how they feel that I empathize with and that I now agree with. However, every single week, some of you who have the freaking logo of the team tattooed on your body, every single week you show up and support this enterprise that is owned by the same kind of people that I golfed with, the same kind of people that I lobbied, the same kind of people that are donating even more of their money to a cause than I am. That's something that I think none of those people are willing to like truly reckon with. It's easier for them to take it out on me.
Are you vocal about your past and what you used to do?
No.
You just say corporate.
I used to keep it all pretty separate because I was still in a place where I was trying to escape it or get out of it or make my own way through it mentally. Yeah. I think I'm going to be way more honest about it now, especially now that I'm quitting this other. It's not a job that was political, but it's. Right. I think I owe it to myself and to others to be honest, because I've had people invite me to hang out at supporter tailgates where I'm like, I don't feel safe there. And like, wait, why don't you feel safe? I'm like, oh, because that dude that you drink beers with every week threatened my life and doxed my family. Like,
I can't believe that. That is ridiculous.
You legitimately would have thought, I think in 2016, oh my gosh, this was the best part. I was working at the RNC and I had worked on a presidential campaign that folded on its way up to Trump becoming the general election nominee. And none of us thought that he was going to win. So I was like, well, once the election's over, I'll just reevaluate like I have every 2 years.
Once Hillary wins, we'll just be good.
Well, I was like, I'll figure out what I want to do from there. I'll just figure out the next phase. There were 2 pictures that someone had uncovered in all of this several years later, exposing that I'm like a piece of garbage human being. One was a picture of me with Ivanka.
Because you were in the art? Oh,
yeah. One was a picture of me with Ivanka, and it was just me shaking her hand. At that point, I'm like, she came to the building, and someone took the photo, and I posted the photo to my personal Instagram.
Right.
The other was, I had to work at the election, the inauguration in 2017.
Okay.
I didn't want to be on the inaugural committee. I didn't want to angle for the transition committee, and I didn't want a job in the administration. So I was kind of in this weird holding place at the RNC from November to like February, where because Trump was coming in with no resources and no connections, right, he just plucked the RNC chairman as his chief of staff.
Yeah, and he selected the entire cabinet.
Oh yeah, right? Like Trump had no idea, right, no experience. Like that separate of the candidate, there's something about that is, I guess, good to have a fresh set of eyeballs. Right. But then the other part of it was like,
selected somebody that's been entrenched in this for 30. Yeah.
But also, if he was entrenched in it in a meaningful way, he wouldn't have been chair of the RNC. The RNC doesn't hold the power that it did when HW was involved. Mm-hmm. It was coming off of this in their mind, embarrassing loss that Mitt Romney had. And Mitt Romney was like the perfect candidate.
2012.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just hanging out, waiting around. But a lot of they have a national committee man and a national committee woman from every state who comes and represents their state as a part of the RNC. And they all came for the inauguration. And my office was in the same space as the member services team. So I was like, yeah, I'll help you guys with what you're doing. So I had to go to the inaugural ball, had to rent a dress and everything. And I took a picture at the end of it all when everyone was leaving. I sat next to the glass and someone took a picture of me, and my Instagram caption was designated survivor. As in the joke was you get.
Yeah.
Tongue in cheek, total tongue in cheek, because exactly. I'm sitting here like still grappling with like, well, I don't want to work in this administration. I don't really want to be a part of this. I'm still like gobsmacked that this is all happening the way that it is, but nothing had been truly bad yet at that point. But also, I'm a middle class, privileged white woman, so the things that people were ringing the alarm about didn't impact me in that first administration, and I recognize that, and I'm unpacking that. And I'm realizing, again, to dive farther into the soccer community, I'm recognizing all the ways in which I am becoming the minority in that space. And that our men's national team and women's national team are going to look very different. This country's going to look very different. And I want to be a part of that community, and I want to be empathetic to it, and I want to be involved in it. So it's going to be a lifelong pursuit. Mm-hmm. I should not feel bad for making the decision when I made it, because the next best time to do it, if you can't do it yesterday, is to do it now.
Yeah.
So those are pictures that they pulled up, and it was truly like, oh my gosh, people were calling me like KKK Barbie. They were imposing my head on pictures of like porn stars. This one, I really wish that I'd kept it because it was so funny. I probably shouldn't explain this. This isn't appropriate. But this woman who was like a dominatrix in Chicago was a part of this online supporters group that had been started during COVID to create and build community. And she made a video mocking me, but she had to have like a dozen dildos in and around her. But the bit was she was pretending to be like me, but she was like throwing them up and throwing them in her face. And I was like, what am I watching? Absolutely no knock on her job, her lifestyle, who she chooses to be, the company she chooses to keep. None of that is anything that I have ever been judgmental on. But mental illness recognizes mental illness. I was like, I am in the trenches of my own mental health, but I am inward and in the darkest closet with it. You are out and about, and that I think might need to be looked at.
Oh my God.
It was insane. But those people walk among them. So to show up to a place where 2 or 3 people might say, hey, I've been following you for a really long time. If you come to this tailgate, beer on me, blah, blah, blah. And I'll say like, yeah, I'll stop by. But sometimes I'm like, unless you can guarantee so-and-so and their friends are not there, I'm not about to show up to this space, even if you invite me. I need to be invited collectively, because I do not feel like I'm going to be welcomed at best. And at worst, I worry for my life.
Yeah.
And that's not specific to me either. That's specific to a lot of like content creators, I think, with whom people have parasocial relationships. Because none of those people that I've met in person would be like, yeah, after all of that, I think you're a piece of crap. Nobody has said that to my face. So
I don't think anybody would.
Yeah, I think I'm a very good person.
How many comments have you gotten and you realize this is the only piece of content of mine that you have ever watched?
That's the couple of reels that I've had that have gone really, really viral. One time when I went to Washington Spirit last year, because I was flying so last minute, I ended up driving from Georgia down to Orlando, which is like a 3-hour drive. And they were playing Orlando. So I get to this flight from Orlando to Kansas City, and I'm like, oh, it's all Orlando Pride fans.
Right.
Amazing. Not only that, but I was wearing a giveaway hat from a Spirit game when they were teasing their rebrand from red and blue to black and yellow. I'm wearing a black hat that says Spirit on it in yellow. And I am flying a Spirit Airlines flight. My very first flight I've ever flown Spirit, because that was the only flight that wasn't insanely expensive. Uh-huh. So I walk on this flight and I'm like, I look like I'm repping the Spirit Airlines brand. And I was like, this is so embarrassing. And not only is it embarrassing, but like the whole flight is full of Orlando Pride fans. Uh-huh. So I sit down, I make this video where it's just on me, and I said something about like when you're on a Spirit Airlines flight and suddenly you're desperate for everybody to know that the NWSL exists, because you want them to recognize like, I'm not wearing Spirit Airlines, I'm wearing Washington Spirit.
Right.
And I got this comment that was like, what is the NWSL? And my thing is, sometimes people ask that in good faith. Other times people ask that because they're the jerks that say no one watches women's sports, or like, we don't even care. So I responded and I said, you have access to Google, I think. That's all I said. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I've had to delete a ton of comments. The video now has 4.1 million views.
Holy. And
it's so meaningless and it's so dumb. But every now and then someone will pop in to be like, you self-important prick. No wonder women's soccer isn't going to succeed in this country because we have idiot gatekeepers like you. I hope you enjoy your soccer all by yourself because nobody's watching. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to contribute A, to learned helplessness, or B, to misogyny. There's a lot of stuff that I will inform you of and educate you on.
Yeah.
But clicking that blue little at NWSL to figure out what it is.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna hold your hand through that.
Right.
And also, a handful of other people responded and said what it was. So.
Exactly. And
Do you need to go?
nope.
Oh.
Another trainer is in here.
Well, we probably should. What should we wrap up with? What else do you got?
I don't know. That's actually what brought me to Buffalo. Is the NWSL.
No
Coaching
way.
with the Flash.
No way.
Yeah, when they were still around. I took a second assistant job because I always wanted to coach pro soccer. So I'm like, what's that like? Because I've done the chasing of all the different levels.
Yeah.
I wanted to work in pro soccer, and then got here. This was back right after Abby Wambach was done playing here. Alex was gone. They traded Carly Lloyd, and we had that phenom rookie class with Sam Ewis, Abby Dahlkemper, Lynn Williams. Who else was on that? Jay Hinkle. We had Sydney LaRue for just a little bit.
Was it like
2015?
Emily Sonnet?
Emily Sonnet was not
A little
there.
older.
It was
That's one thing I'll say is, bless Alex Morgan's heart. Once they brought the NWSL back and were building teams, she was just every new team bounced.
Yeah, she was the face for a while, and now obviously the young guns. It's interesting to see women soccer players foregoing college soccer and going right into the NWSL. I mean, we have 15-year-olds in the league now.
I don't like it. I don't like it. The hoops or the technicalities that some parents in the league have used to get these, like the 14 and 15-year-olds, to me, I'm like, this isn't just a professional career.
Mm-hmm.
I would never push my 14 or 15-year-old into any career. But also, the NWSL has been plagued with scandal on the way that women are emotionally and physically abused by coaches.
Sexually sometimes.
And why would you subject your 14 or 15-year-old to that before they sorted that? That's, to me, I'm like, some of these gals are coming in while these players associations are still advocating for themselves to be treated like human beings.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But also, I think that the level that NWSL is at right now is going to burn a 14-year-old out very quickly.
Yeah.
So I guess your career can go 14 to 28, or it can go 22 to 38.
And it's so hard for somebody that is, let's say they're at a mid-major college program. It is so hard for them to get into the NWSL. They have to go over to Europe for 2 or 3 years and then come back and try to get in the NWSL. And now they're taking 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. Why? Because that's what happens in Europe on the men's side? Is that why? Or is it because Europe doesn't have college soccer, and so there's 15, 16, 17-year-old women are playing with pros. Carissima, the one at FC Buffalo who works for me, she went to Norway for a year, and her teammates were like 17 years old. Because they don't have college soccer. So is that why we're trying to, or is it because we're trying to claim them early? We have rights on that player.
I don't know. It reminds me of that girl. Oh shoot, Lily Johannes.
Okay.
She plays for PSG Women.
Okay.
And is like this new big name for the women's national team. And I've been in my MLS fantasy league, has so many like Generation Adidas and other dudes in there that know about the next best 12-year-old before I even care who they are. Sometimes when I watch these big names pop out, and she's been the face of so many marketing campaigns for U.S. soccer lately, I'm like, where did she come from? And is she really so amazing? is she really that amazing?
I don't think so. I don't know.
It's not even a knock on her. It's this like, we have plucked you out of not obscurity, because I know she's put the work in, but
right. It's almost like they handpick. It's like
it feels like it. And good on her, but to me it passively narrows this pool of talent in a way that causes people on the fan side to forget just how many millions of other girls across the world are attempting this same feat.
right.
Seeing the same like 30 gal roster in and out, and having the Carly Lloyds get their farewell tours to add minutes, and I'm like, where's the infrastructure to feed us the next several Carly Lloyds?
Exactly.
And why does it doesn't feel like scouting and recruitment is as proactive as it is reactive.
Right. Especially about 5 years ago or 4 years ago, when they were fighting for equal pay and all that. There's a reason why it was the same roster, because they didn't make much money in the NWSL. So they demanded to be on the roster, and the players really dictated who was on the team and who wasn't. And that's why Tom Sermani, one of the former national team coaches from Australia, that's why he got fired, because he tried to bring in young talent. And because they only made money when they played, when they had games. And that's why everybody was talking about, equal pay. Wait a minute. The women's national team would play 21 games per year, and the men would play 9, because they're playing in their domestic leagues or their international leagues. And so there's no way that it could be equal pay unless we have way less games on the women's side and we bring in other talent, because we cannot pay Alex Morgan the same as Christian Pulisic with you guys having twice the amount of games.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how that whole thing went crazy. And now it's different, and now the roster is changed. But isn't there a lot less women's national team games? Like, there wasn't remember, what year was it? What year did we win the Olympics? And then they had a gold medal tour.
Oh my gosh.
Where they went around. They didn't do that after the last Olympics, because they had like 2 games maybe against China. But they didn't have a friggin' tour because it's equal pay now. They can't afford it. U.S. Soccer, from what I've been told, they're broke somehow. How, I don't know.
I believe it. Well, they're building they're moving their entire operations from Chicago to Atlanta.
Right.
I have heard tale of them gutting a lot of staff after these cycles of tournaments. And I know Tim Howard and Landon Donovan on their
they talk
little
about all the
snooze
time.
of a podcast.
Yeah.
They were joking about how the Federation was asking for bricks.
Yeah. Bricks. Yeah, I saw that clip.
And I laughed because I'm like, that would be cool to have my name there. And then when I walked to Audi Field when DC United tried to do that, I was thinking, what sucker put their name down here? Like, why couldn't the billionaire owners of this entity pay for it themselves? Why did DC bend over backwards to offer the most tax breaks, the most public funding?
Yeah.
For that stadium, of any soccer specific stadium.
What? I'm gonna get a brick that says "I hate soccer" at the U.S. headquarters. But
can you imagine?
Talk about your stadium stuff. Kansas City Chiefs and the Royals, they're on the Missouri side. They're about to move to Kansas because of the public funding being voted down.
Yeah. But my thing is, like, the Hunt family.
Oil, I believe.
Yes. But they can afford
a stadium.
They just want to do it cheap.
Yep. This one here for the Buffalo Bills, I believe, is publicly.
My thing is, you have such a small, in the grand scheme of things, your life is literally this long.
Yep.
I get that legacy is important. But why? Well, I get that making money is important. I get that generational wealth is important. It is legacy to me that should be driving these decisions. If you move to Kansas because you tried strong-arming a city and state government and it didn't go your way, people are going to hate you more for having moved it to hecking nowhere.
Yeah.
Leavenworth, we'll say, just to be dramatic. People are going to hate you more for that than it's going to make a difference that you spent a couple million dollars of your own money to keep it somewhere and to do something with it.
Yep.
And that, to me, I think the big conversation about billionaires right now is, like, where are the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts that are building, like, railroads and public infrastructure and doing, like, actual good? They don't exist.
No.
They don't exist.
No. I mean, Elon Musk, where is he? I mean,
probably teaching his kid how to do ketamine. I don't know. I don't know. That I can't get
that
into.
whole thing. Yeah.
What a beautiful way to wrap this up
All
on
right.
that note.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh no,
On a
thank
whim.
you.
I mean,
On a huge whim.
I saw it, and I'm pretty sure I DM'd you that second when the FC Buffalo posted.
And I'm laughing because your DMs were right in the middle of all these other messages that were like, why can't you come to XYZ town? Why can't you come to XYZ town?
Where are you going next? Syracuse?
Yes, and then on to Montreal.
Montreal is dope. Have you been there? You haven't been
Literally never. I am very well traveled, but the few places that I have not been are coming up on me.
What has been your favorite area, your favorite town? Like
Vancouver.
Where do you want to end up long term? Somewhere in the
So
Midwest?
that's part of this journey is figuring that out. So.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
And we'll end right there.
I hate soccer.